Hi, this is Evan.
And this is Joe.
And this is the Nonsensory podcast. On this episode, we learned that the next Black Ops will return to its Cold War roots. We get an official release date for Riot's first foray into competitive shooters with Valorant. And a new Last of Us Part 2 trailer gives us an in-depth look at actual gameplay. We talk movie news with the arrival of a new trailer for Christopher Nolan's mind-bending new movie Tenet. And with the arrival of news concerning the long-requested Snyder cut of Justice League, we ask if it's really necessary. Finally, we delve into our individual top 10 games of all time, baby. Let's go!
Greetings and welcome to episode 8 of the Nonsensory podcast. If you aren't already, you can subscribe to us on podcast services iTunes and Spotify, as well as our YouTube channel. Just search Nonsensory. You can also follow us on Twitter at Nonsensory1 and Facebook at Nonsensory Podcast. Also, you can send us questions, comments, and concerns at nonsensorypod@gmail.com. Evan!
Yeah, what's up?
What's happening?
Sorry, I was giving love. I had to say hi for a solid 8 seconds straight. What's up, Joe?
What's up, Evan?
Oh, nothing, man. I'm trying to caffeine up, get everything out, get all my shakes going. Yeah. It's great.
I'm ready.
We attempted to do a Halo stream this week, and it took a big old dump. It didn't work, so we ended up playing some Warzone.
That was a massive bummer. But
hopefully, coming up this Tuesday at 7:30, where we stream on Twitch at Nonsensory each and every Tuesday at 7:30, we will be going through the Halo 2. We're gonna start with Reach. So we're gonna start with Reach and start going through the campaign on co-op. And I don't know. We could make a whole thing where we just go all the way through the whole collection if we wanted to.
I think that's what we're going for, maybe.
All right. Yeah, that sounds good to me. I just, I look forward to it. Are we going to play, what difficulty are we going to play on? Are we going to play on Heroic or Legendary?
I was going to play on Sissy.
Okay, that's fine too. Is that one of the options that you get?
I don't know if they're...
Private Johnson's like, you're going to play on Sissy, boy! Press X to be a sissy. While Joe chokes on his coffee, I'd like to thank you for joining us again today.
I almost spewed coffee everywhere.
So it's going to take a little while, but you guys know that you can find us on iTunes and Spotify, as well as YouTube. But we're also going to be on Stitcher and Google Play coming up here shortly. We recently submitted our podcast to those services as well. Just trying to get it out to as many services as we can. And so hopefully by next episode we'll be up on there. But once we get up on there, once we get up in there, our this episode will be available, as well as all of our older episodes. So you can check us out on those services as well. So
growing and growing and growing.
Mm-hmm. Not just my waistline. Those breakfast burritos.
those things were friggin' legendary. Mm-hmm. That was so good. And mine was reheated.
The key is the griddle.
Okay, so
you have to roll them and then griddle them.
Yes.
Otherwise, they're just not as good.
No, that's true. But background story, I drank way too much last night.
Yeah, we all did.
Spent the entire morning curled up in a ball of pain.
Yeah, that's why we have all this caffeine.
And
between the sake and the fireball, Jack Fire,
Crown Royal apple. Let's see.
That G.O.A.T was good. I wish I could remember where it's actually from to even shout it out. I can't. But
it was delicious.
There is a local. Not a sponsor, but there is a local beer place called House of 1,000 Beers near us that we frequent often whenever we get together to record podcasts. We'll go, and they've got a huge bottle selection, and they were doing growler fill-ups. So we took one of those home. Well, we took 2 of those home and finished about 1.5 of them.
Yeah,
on top of all the other stuff.
And I'm pretty sure that was just me and you.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
so,
that was...
beyond us being degenerates.
Well, then I woke... You made breakfast burritos this morning, and I'm a loser and had to like go back and take a nap.
And I rubbed your tummy. I rubbed your tummy the whole time, Joe.
You stayed by my bedside.
It's okay.
You need to like cue in some music for this part.
Like the Days of Our Lives theme.
Okay.
No, man, you're a resource. I have to make sure that like we have everything functioning for the podcast, not just the audio equipment or the video equipment, but also the flesh equipment. Not.
Wow.
Make sure you sanitize your flesh equipment.
Oh, come on. All right.
Fleshlight, not a sponsor.
Oh, God. No.
Okay. Should we get into the news for this week?
So we're going to try to move through the news because we're going to try to do something special.
Yeah, we have a special segment that we're going to do today. We're going to run down our individual top 10 games. So making a top 10 list is pretty hard.
Yes.
Because we've been playing games for decades now, and we've played a lot of games, and it's really hard to include one over the other, and there's probably a decent amount of games that on any given day I could throw into this list versus some of the other things. But this is like our tentative right now top 10 that we can think of.
And we still chickened out and didn't put it in a particular order.
Yeah, no. That would be too hard.
Oh.
So hard.
Yeah. I tried so hard not to make it Nintendo heavy because I probably
okay.
there's a part of me that would just like
mine's definitely like shooter heavy,
if
not PlayStation 2 heavy. So it is what it is.
We actually have a couple of titles we agree on, which I didn't think that was going to happen.
Oh yeah. I just scrolled through the doc and got to look at Joe's. Some of the things that Joe added. I'm pretty excited.
So let's get to it.
Today's episode is brought to you by Tales from the Arcanist and thearcanist.io. The Arcanist serves up bite-sized science fiction, fantasy, and horror from independent authors all over the globe. Everything is about a 5-minute read or less, so these little bite-sized tales are easy to binge when you have a moment on your lunch break, or perhaps when you're planted firmly on the toilet. The Arcanist also has essays about modern culture, the art of writing, the history of fiction, and much more. Their weekly fiction podcast, Tales from the Arcanist, is a similarly bite-sized listen that collects 2 stories, one brand new and one from their archive, and delivers the spooky and strange fresh to your ears. To check out thearcanist.io or to submit a work of your own, visit the link in the description. You can find their podcast, Tales from the Arcanist, there as well, or find it on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or Apple Podcasts.
Evan, would you like to take the first article?
I would like to lead off, yes. So
you would like to lead off.
Our Call of Duty love is no secret here for Warzone, and the newest Call of Duty for 2020 is reportedly going to be Black Ops Cold War. This is according to an article from Forbes. Cold War will shed the numbers and return to a more grounded version of the game. While past Black Ops installments ended up going into the far-flung future, it's supposed to be a returning to its roots type thing, similar to how this past year's Modern Warfare was a refresh of the original Modern Warfare concept. Here, we're going back to the original Black Ops to some extent. How Warzone and Cold War will interact with each other this fall will be interesting to see. It seems that Activision is married to Warzone as a constant BR title rather than something that'll get replaced like Blackout. As such, I would imagine that we will see Black Ops weapons and operators show up in Warzone, as this sort of integration between the games was previously promised when Warzone first debuted. So I'm pretty excited about this. I'm not a huge fan of the Black Ops series.
No.
Only because they took a turn into like the future, and I really liked the first Black Ops because it was in the Cold War.
Oh, it was good.
And it did like that weird non-linear story where there was a bunch of flashbacks and there was like an unreliable narrator and stuff involved in it. And I thought that was really cool. And people have been asking for like, a return to like Vietnam and stuff like that. After they did the World War II reboot, everybody was like, go back to World War II, and then they did it, and it wasn't received very well, and now everybody's like, go back to Vietnam. But I'm excited that they're going to try to do sort of like a soft reboot like they did with Modern Warfare.
I feel like there's always a push towards the familiar. and people don't realize they don't want you can't just keep doing the same thing. But that's a little off topic. I always thought Modern Warfare was better in general. It's not that I didn't like Black Ops. It was just a little something different, and it wasn't quite for me. I mean, I really enjoyed the first one, like you said. I even did enjoy, which one was it? Black Ops 3. Mm-hmm. There were some really good multiplayer maps. It was, you know, it was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. But really, I'm kind of interested to see how they do this.
I think it's interesting because Modern Warfare was developed by Infinity Ward, and then their usual schedule is Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer, and then Treyarch. Treyarch came out with Black Ops 4 right before Modern Warfare came out, and you would expect Sledgehammer to be coming back with another game after they did World War II. Mm. But I guess they're just going to be completely out of the picture, and Treyarch's going to skip back over them and basically develop this Black Ops, because Black Ops is Treyarch's baby.
Well, hopefully when Infinity Ward comes back for their next one,
their next Modern Warfare-ish,
hopefully that means they've put all that extra time into polish and, you know, doing something really special.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with Sledgehammer. I mean, like I said, they made World War II and it wasn't very well received, but I mean, it still sold a ton because it's Call of Duty. So I'm wondering what kind of problems maybe they ran into, or maybe they just went back to the drawing board. Because like Infinity Ward has the Modern Warfare line, yeah, and then they were doing like their Warfare line, even when they weren't doing after Modern Warfare 3, they went and did Advanced Warfare and Infinite Warfare. Yeah. And so they're still like doing the whole Warfare line. And so they went back to Modern Warfare with this one. So I assume they'll be coming back with Infinity Ward will be coming back with a sequel to Modern Warfare. Treyarch's going to continue to do Black Ops. And so I'm wondering what kind of niche in the Call of Duty timeline or setting scenario that they actually settle on with Sledgehammer. Because they've always done... oh, man, what was the one that they did before World War II? I think it was Ghosts. Were they I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, it was Ghost. You can double check me. That's fine. I'm not offended.
Oh, okay. So Sledgehammer did do Advanced Warfare, which I always thought was yeah. Okay, so Sledgehammer did World War II, Advanced Warfare, and Modern Warfare 3? Wow. Okay. I was unaware. I guess I got my... I mean, there's been so many Call of Duty titles. It's really hard to keep everything straight. But regardless, I'm excited for the Cold War setting. And I wonder if it's going to follow the same kind of gritty, more down-to-earth, realistic... Like, that's what the Forbes article seems to suggest. But I wonder what form that takes, because like Black Ops 1 was like it was like over the top and like the conspiracy theory kind of. It was very mind gamey, which like all the Black Ops games have been very mind gamey. So I'm wondering how much that'll play into it. But
I would like to see them stick a little more to real world stuff. I mean, have that in there for sure, but.
Do you want more like actual military, or do you, because like it's either actual military or like operatives, like secret operatives going on. I kind of want to see how they would take on the Cold War in Vietnam from like an actual like a military squad kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Versus, like these named kind of operative NPCs and stuff. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah. I lost my train of thought. It's cool.
That's okay.
Let's move on.
All
right. Valorant, the new competitive FPS from Riot, creators of Legends
of League.
League of Legends, to launch June 2nd. This is an article from Kotaku. Per a press release from Riot, Valorant will launch in the majority of regions worldwide on June 2nd. There will be new weapon skins, a season pass, and one additional mode that will carry a beta tag for the foreseeable future. Someday it might become an official second mode. And it might become an official second mode. Developers did not provide any more specifics, but they did note that it's not Team Deathmatch, and that Team Deathmatch will not be the first or second mode Riot releases. So, not they don't care too much for Team Deathmatch, apparently.
No, and I think that just goes along with maybe embracing, because Overwatch. When Overwatch launched, and this is very much like Overwatch meets CS:GO, where your characters have individual abilities and stuff, and Overwatch did not embrace the team deathmatch thing and like actively resisted it for a long time.
Yeah.
Even though like at launch people were like, "Why isn't there a team deathmatch?" And I was like, "Why isn't there a team?" So I think that Valorant's just kind of doing the same thing as a way to like establish their identity. Like, no, this is what we are first. This is what we wanted it to be. We're not gonna like double down and we're not gonna. Sorry, they would be doubling down by saying this. But they're not going to just like make a lowest common denominator mode that everybody else can turn out to, And I kind of like that, but
the thing is, I feel like we have seen a massive decrease in any kind of team deathmatch. We're not getting much of it.
No, yeah, that's for sure. Like even with Doom Eternal, they didn't launch with a team deathmatch. They did in the last game. They had like a proper deathmatch mode, and then they gave you like the Demon Slayer versus Demon thing that I didn't really care for. Like I just wanted. I'm personally a fan of team deathmatches, especially in a game. In a game like Doom, which has its own. Like you don't need to have your own identity in like the game mode that you make if your combat is its own identity. So that's kind of how I feel about it. But
I definitely agree with that sentiment, and I realized how much I missed team deathmatch when we were playing Warzone, and there was that free weekend, and so you got to play the regular Call of Duty, maps and stuff, and so I jumped into some team deathmatch, and it was so insanely frantic. Yeah, because you're so used to these big maps, and I can go around and loot for a while, and I don't really have to run into anyone until I want to, and then you go into team deathmatch, and you're like, people are everywhere. Yeah, I do miss it. I miss it a lot.
I think that the more interesting thing that Counter-Strike does is in its non-team deathmatch based modes, where there's like the objectives like plant the bombs and stuff like that. Those are classic, and I feel like that's Valorant is very much trying to be the CS:GO from Riot, basically.
Yeah.
And so I think they're hanging their hat on being that sort of thing.
Are you going to play this game? Are you interested in this?
I mean, it's free and it's from Riot. And so, like, I'll definitely give it a look.
That's fair.
I'm not a huge League of Legends person. I appreciate League of Legends. I watch League of Legends sometimes, and it's pretty exciting to watch. But as far as a game that I like to play, it's not my thing.
League of Legends is one of those weird things where... Okay, so I grew up having to watch my older siblings play video games, and, you had to just watch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not going to let you get the controller, So I always hated watching games for the longest time. And now recently it's like I've fallen into like I'll watch League of Legends and I'll be like, what's wrong with me? It's actually entertaining.
It's very interesting for sure as a thing to watch. It's the same thing as like I was talking about where like I can just sit there and like watch people play poker and stuff. It's just bizarre. I've completely switched because like I don't have a whole lot of time to play games now.
Yeah.
So it is nice that like if I'm doing something else like cooking dinner or something, I can put on like a match of something and
that's really cool.
Get my game fixed that way.
Oh yeah.
And I think that they're really hoping that this game is going to be huge on Twitch, which it already has been huge on Twitch.
We covered that, yeah.
And that's how they were like dealing out beta codes and stuff like that as well. They were, go on and watch your favorite streamer and maybe they'll pop you a code, and stuff like that. That's how you got into the closed beta. So that closed beta is supposed to wrap up May 28th. So that will be Wednesday? No, Thursday.
Thursday, yeah. No, it's Thursday.
That'll be Thursday. Everybody's accounts will be reset and stuff. So everybody will have a nice fresh reset whenever they start, which is really good too.
The reason I know that Thursday is the 28th? Because I have an order coming with some anime in it.
Oh, yeah? What'd you get?
Well, I can't say a lot of it
You
because
got your Big O, right?
that's the one I can mention. All the rest is an anniversary gift. It's kind of aside, but
okay.
yeah.
Okay, nice. Oh, Eileen has something coming for me today. She's been like teasing me about it. You know, like, oh, this is coming. And then the FedEx truck pulled up and it was something for Colin. And she was like, oh. And I was like, oh, I really wish it was my stuff, but that's all right. Well, I guess we'll go on.
No,
Sorry.
I jumped off just for a minute there. I just wanted to say, I mean, fair enough. I'll at least look. I'll at least give it a shot. I don't see myself getting involved in another free-to-play, shooter. I think 1 or 2 is enough. I think Warzone fills me out pretty good right now.
Yeah, it's tough to like. I've always had a tough time bouncing between competitive games, because there's such a different. It's weird to talk about because like so many games share so many different or so many of the same qualities, even just in terms of like shooters. Well, just having Valorant in mind, like, you could pop between PUBG, Fortnite, Valorant, Warzone, all those things, and like to the layman, they're just like, well, they're just shooters, like just play them, like they all play the same, but like when you play them enough, the little idiosyncrasies you get so used to them, and so switching between them, it can feel like vastly different. And I'm not one that like adjusts very quickly between those things, and it sucks to like play Warzone and then hop into a match of Overwatch and be like, man, I'm completely bad at this, and I'll get better after a couple of matches and get my legs back under me.
But then try jumping back into like a Borderlands or something like that, and it's like it's a whole different world.
Yeah.
Even though like if you watch someone play, it looks the same. It's not the same. So
right.
One last comment is that how would you feel? I really like the idea of permadeath, or at least so in Plunder in Warzone, the idea, or is it not Plunder because you just keep coming back.
Is that Blood Money? Is it the new thing?
Yeah, it is Blood Money now.
Okay,
but I misspoke. I meant the regular game, how you can buy your teammates back.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I would love to see that kind of concept, like permadeath, but being able to buy someone back in a team deathmatch. So you actually have the team deathmatch element, the chaos, and and having to think and be strategic, and like I think it would bring in another element where people would have to treat it a little more intelligently.
Well, like with Counter-Strike, the way that you get weapons is you buy them from the shop, and you buy them with funds that you get from your performance based on the rounds that you play. So like maybe if you could go to like a buy station in the middle of a match of that and buy your friend back if they got fragged or something like that. That would be pretty interesting.
Yeah. I just think it encourages people to play smart and not run around like chickens, which I'm guilty sometimes. Right. But I'm just saying, you get into this a scrap with somebody and you keep running into them and you just like, I'm getting that guy, and then you just keep running around like an idiot and dying. I do that, but
I like my I like the head change that I have whenever like my teammates die in Warzone, where we always go back to talk about Warzone. This is the Warzone podcast.
I love it.
Some news sometimes, but I like that my whole way of play kind of changes once my teammates are dead, because then I just like turn into the savior mode.
Yeah,
like, I need to go get money and bring my friends back, and that's like all I want to do. I think that's like the most fun I have in the game. It's like bringing all my buddies back.
I love it. Yeah, I've noticed that you are very much the hero. Like
I try to be.
Wait, I'm coming.
Where's my boys at?
Where you at? So moving on. Well, you have a question here, and I will read it, but I'm not sure. What previous Sony/Xbox franchises would you like to see resurrected or get sequels on next gen?
Yes. I thought it was a very interesting question to ask, and I figured we could hop into it briefly just because there's so many remasters coming out, like with Tony Hawk coming back, and there's so many that I can't think of them. But like the Mafia remasters and stuff that are coming out, those are, they're not exclusive games or anything, but it seems to me that there's like a decent amount of remasters or remakes going on, like with Resident Evil and all that stuff. And I really had a couple that I thought of that I'd really like to see coming back. They already a couple years ago gave me what I wanted with the Crash Team Racing remake, which was
right.
awesome. So I was thinking, maybe even somebody like, I have it listed here as Xbox and Sony, but we'll throw Nintendo in there too, because I know you're the Nintendo guy. So,
well, what do you think?
What I want to see at least remade or to get a sequel would be like another Jak and Daxter.
Okay. Yeah.
Because, I mean, it wasn't good enough to get on my list, right? But I love the original Jak and Daxter and Jak 2. I wasn't really a huge fan of Jak 3, but that series was really good, and it was like it was a kid-friendly game that didn't feel too kiddie, and I think that it's like, especially for Sony, I think it's like a game that they could actually use right now because they don't really have a whole lot of kid-friendly games.
They should Ratchet and Clank too.
Ratchet and Clank. Well, they did.
I always loved those.
They did do like a sort of reboot of Ratchet and Clank not too long ago. So I think they're gonna keep. Yeah. I think that's still in their consciousness. I think that they're still gonna keep trying.
I feel like that was so long ago now, though.
Oh, let me look it up.
Well, while you do that, the first thing that popped in my head.
Okay.
I know there's ones that I could have. I know there are others that would be really cool, I think, but for some reason I'm drawing a blank. But the one that like immediately like Perfect Dark. Because Perfect Dark Zero sucked. And just because like I feel like they were like, "Oh, well, we made a sucky game, so we're just going to leave it."
Yeah,
but no, it was the first game I played I probably put hundreds of hours in the first one.
I played anytime you bring up like a Rare game, it always gets me back to other Rare games, and so like obviously Rare made Perfect Dark on the N64. They also made GoldenEye on the N64.
Yeah,
and I get that the Rare that we have now isn't like
I don't know how to describe
it, but like Microsoft has.
It's not like
the Perfect Dark IP.
It was around the time of Pokemon and all the card games,
So I wouldn't mind seeing them revisit that franchise as well.
But it's like you wander around.
They tried to do like a new GoldenEye, like I think it was on the Wii.
Into another world.
And it was actually pretty good. Like I played it with a friend, and it sucked on the motion controls, but you could hook up GameCube controls and just wreck everybody because they, anybody that was actually using the Wii remote, you could just destroy them. But it was a really fun attempt, I would say, and I don't know. I feel like New Perfect Dark would be good, especially because it seems like such a waste for them to have those IPs just sitting there like that. So, I could go with that. So yeah, I don't think I can't really think of another one at the moment. But.
No, I'm sure there are tons.
Oh yeah.
Well, you brought in Nintendo, but I don't know who did it. I was trying to find it. There's a game that was on Game Boy, or it might have been Game Boy Color, like way back. It was a very obscure game. My brother introduced me to it, and it's like it's a dueling card game kind of deal. But it's like, I really don't know how to describe it, and I'm probably speaking to absolutely no one right now about this. But it was called Magination, and it was amazing. It was really fun. I don't know how to describe it. You like basically.
What? Okay.
It's not like.
Hold on, let me read this first.
It was around the time of Pokemon and all the card game, all
big
that.
card game explosion when Pokemon was huge.
Capcom's cult classic Power Stone.
But it's like you wander around and
in the future, according to an interview with the game's designer and producer.
So you fall through into another world. While you're there, you run across different animals that there's these geysers. And once you just like the geysers are dungeons. Once you clear out each dungeon,
Did that say players or prayers?
you basically try to take over all the geysers so that you can bring yourself back to the real world. I don't remember the exact storyline. Probably not selling it, but then you run across these little sparks on the map, and whenever you run into one, it's the random encounter. And when you beat, you can use your cards to summon the creatures that you have. Well, I guess they're actually on rings. You have like rings. And whenever you beat a creature, you get gems, and whenever you have a certain amount of gems of certain creatures, like each one has a requirement. So making one creature doesn't necessarily mean you get to build it from its own gems. You actually have to have the gems, like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's certain requirements, and then you can get more and more powerful creatures, and it's really fun. I found it quite entertaining.
Well, while I was thinking about it, I thought maybe Power Stone would be another great. Power Stone was a Dreamcast game. And
That's why
it was an awesome like isometric, like it wasn't like isometric, but it was like an arena combat game, but you had like little individual characters and stuff. And it was fantastic. And it's tragic that nobody has made another Power Stone. And also,
I'm looking it up.
Oh, dude, it was so good. Oh wait, I see a Switch.
I do see
there.
that.
Is there a version on the Switch?
What? Okay. Hold on, let me read this first. Power Stone is a fully 3D arena fighting game made by Capcom. Power Stone was initially released on the Sega Naomi hardware?
Sure.
And later ported to the Dreamcast in October 2006.
In October 2006, Capcom ported the game.
Oh, Okay, I'm sorry.
And to the PSP. Okay. Well, I don't have a PSP. Come on, get on some consoles that we have.
Which means it would be pretty easy to get it onto the Switch, if that's indeed something that happened. Oop.
It reminded me of like a different take on Smash, almost.
Okay.
But it was a really, really fun game.
Let's see what this says. I did find it says something.
Could find new life on the Nintendo Switch, huh?
Oh, go away. Whatever. Capcom's cult classic Power Stone could release on the Nintendo Switch in the future, according to an interview with the game's designer and producer. Power Stone was first released I just read all that, basically. It was a hit with fighting game fans, and they've been calling for a port on more recent systems ever since. An interview with the game's designer and producer might be an answer to those players. Did that say players or prayers? Prayers.
I think it's prayers, but I just like that there's just a giant butt.
Yeah.
Oh, my Power Stone. Look at that. That's a Power Stone right there.
In an interview with The Guardian on August 14th, Hideaki Itsuno talked about Power Stone's background and why he picked the design choices he did for the game. I was going to go with a modern-day setting to appeal to as many players as possible, but modern-day technology lacks a certain flair. There's just no romance to it, so I went with the 19th century before such technology became ubiquitous. Grr! Okay, anyway, I'm not going to keep going on.
Don't ubiquitous. That was bad.
It looks cool.
Yeah, no, it was back in the 90s, early 2000s, Capcom was just hitting it out of the park a lot.
I still get messages to port it.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's definitely it's one of those games that, it's like trapped on those older systems, and at least, it's just weird that like a version of it isn't on stores, somewhere, like a digital storefront or something.
Yeah. I think it's possible because you see stuff like that make it over to Switch all the time.
Yeah.
So maybe there is a chance.
Yeah, I don't know if it has something to do with it being like stuck on Dreamcast or what, but like I said, it was put on the PSP, so I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I guess we'll move on to the Last of Us news because there was a new gameplay trailer that was released. So they released a new inside the gameplay video Wednesday, and they kind of went over the new gameplay trailer, and there was some decent, like, it was great because they just did that Ghost of Tsushima gameplay trailer, and we were whining a couple episodes ago, like,
you were whining.
Okay, I was whining, like, where's the gameplay, and then they came through and showed us, they gave us the Ghost of Tsushima 18-minute video, and then they gave us this new gameplay trailer, which really gives us, an idea of how the gameplay in this game will be different than The Last of Us Part 1. Obviously, you watched it, so what did you think, Joe?
This looks incredible.
Mm-hmm.
This is everything that I was hoping to see and more.
Yeah.
If the mechanics from the gameplay work the way they're showing it, because you know how that goes. Like, you have someone who's familiar with it playing it, and so they can kind of, not in a fake way, but you can stage things to look more perfect than they are.
All right. Somebody that has been either working on the game or played the game long enough, they know, like, when all the little bits of flair, they know where to go and what will trigger what.
There's one particular part in the trailer where they're talking about the Dodge, and they're in, like, it looks like a car park, okay? And there's, like, what is it, like 3 or 4 people running up to her at once, and she's like, I'm gonna dodge over here, and then I'm gonna dodge over there, and I'm gonna stab you, and I'm gonna fall against this car, and then I'm gonna, and it's like, if it works the way that scene showed it working, perfection.
Yeah, it was really intriguing, or not intriguing, but encouraging to me to see that a lot of, like, the dynamic stuff that they showed in those initial trailers, where you're like, is this real? Like, is this stuff actually going to be in the final game? It looks like a lot of it is actually going to make it into the final game, like her reactions to stuff and, like, her interaction with the environment, and, like, just little touches all over the place that look like they've just put, like, these little interactions with the character and the animations and all that stuff that makes it feel like you're actually in that world.
Unlike the first Last of Us and that E3 trailer, the legendary E3 trailer there, that got me interested in the game to start with. And, like, if you go back, Last of Us delivered and was fantastic, but if you actually compare it to the trailer that we got to see, it's nothing the same. Like, they're so wildly different.
Yeah, and I think that they really needed to release this, because they can give us as many story trailers and cinematic trailers as they want, but whenever you have all the negative buzz that was surrounding the studio and the game over the last couple months, you really just need to get your game out and say, like, at the end of the day, this is what you guys want. You want to play this game, and here is the game, and here's how it looks when you play it. And so I think that really helped, like, ease my worries about it.
Yes, there are people out there who are ruining the story. I don't know if this is still going on. I'm sure it is.
I'm sure
people are jerks.
They're going to keep trolling until the game's out, and even well after.
But the thing is, you can spoil the story all you want. If a game plays well, people are going to want to play it.
Yeah.
So this is what they needed to do to cure their ills, I think.
Right.
I think you're right.
So it seems like they really doubled down on, like, Ellie being a different character than Joel, and they work that into how she controls.
I really love that. Yeah, she's, like, more nimble.
Yeah, she's like, obviously she's smaller. She's not going to be able to, like, stand toe to toe with these dudes like Joel would, and just, like, slug it out with them
with brute force. But
yeah, exactly. Like, Joel was more of, like, a brute force dude who would, he would, like, charge at people and, like, put his arms up and, like, push them into stuff and then just, like, beat the living hell out of them. Versus Ellie, she's more of, like, she's, like, dodging and hopping over stuff and, like, confusing them almost. And
seems a lot like she's in the, like, the guerrilla warfare kind of, like, I'm gonna. Well, no, that's not the right way to think about it either. I mean, I'm sure there's bits of that, but, like, in the actual close quarters combat, I'm gonna bob and weave, and I'm just gonna shank you real quick, and then bob and weave and shank you again.
She was more like Ollie to, like,
yes,
so, like, more of like a Street Fighter brute force kind of thing. And I
Kimbo Slice.
yeah, she's more ollie to like Kimbo Slice and stuff. And I like that like you can jump now. So
Yes.
that will like I think that it became kind of a meme eventually in like Naughty Dog games where like you'd have to like find a thing in the environment and go pick it up and then like drag it over so that you could like climb onto this thing and stuff. And especially with The Last of Us, you know, there was a lot of that where you'd spend some time just like
Looking for ladders.
You're in a room, yeah, you need a ladder, you need a board to like put yourself over. And I'm sure there will be some of that stuff, but just the fact that you can like, oh, I can get on top of this ambulance and you just jump there or something like that. That's really cool. I like that they also added the prone thing, which I think it's amazing that like it's like being hailed as like this crazy thing that you can do in this game. But
you
like,
can go prone.
yeah, and I'm like, whenever we made our list, you know, one of the games that I put on there has been doing the go prone and go hide under stuff thing since like 1998. So I would say that it's definitely a new thing for Last of Us, and you know the way that they're gonna do it. You know, I appreciate that, like, okay, you're gonna hide under stuff, and if you do hide under stuff, they'll still like it's not like in old games where you're hidden completely. You know, like you're under this thing, they're not gonna look for you, whatever. Like the guys will come and pull you out and stuff.
Yeah.
If you stay under there too long, like you can hide under stuff and like use it for momentary solace, but then eventually you need to keep planning your next move.
This makes me think that they're gonna you're gonna feel a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
Like you got to keep moving. You can't stay still. There's always a threat. Kind of. Mm-hmm. I'm really liking that impression. Like
it reminds me a bit of like God of War, like the new God of War, where
I never played it actually.
dude,
I know it. I've heard too much.
But like every room in God of War that you came into that was like a combat room felt like a puzzle, almost like a combat puzzle, where you're like, okay, this is going to happen here. This is where these guys are going to be, and this is what these are the moves that I'm going to use, and the abilities that I'm going to use, and the strategy that I'm going to use. But also, like, you know, things change organically, so you would have to do stuff on the fly too. So, and I feel like that's what The Last of Us is going to be like. Okay, you're going to come into this encounter, and maybe you fail, and then you just keep like trying to go at the room with these different strategies, but you know, those strategies are only strategies until you use them, and then once you use them, maybe they don't work out, but they give you a bunch of different things that you can do after those things don't work to maybe pull yourself out and still come up on top. I also like that they added the dodge.
Yeah.
Where, you know, you don't just like, if somebody swings at you, you don't just have to like take it or like mash the attack button to kind of like try to cancel out their attack. It's more like you can, you know, you dodge and weave, kind of like what you're talking about with the ollie kind of.
Yeah, I thought there was some kind of evasive thing that you could do before.
If there was, I forget. But this seems like you know, she just like kind of like leans out of the way and stuff. It looks very cinematic. I'll say that.
It makes you feel. She's like we were talking about. She's more nimble than Joel. Mm. You know, you get that feeling from that. A lot, you know.
Yeah.
Woo, woo.
I also think that like they talked about the open level design, which is there were some things that you could find. There was some optional stuff that you could find in the last Last of Us, but
yeah. Are you talking about how they had that article that said like basically you're not going to find everything in a single playthrough?
Yeah. Or not that you won't be able to find all this stuff, but there will definitely be stuff that like you could run into that other people wouldn't run into.
Yeah, it's so big that
versus the last game where like for the majority of players found most of the same stuff, and the only stuff that you really didn't find were like little collectible notes or something like that. And I wonder what that means. Like I wonder the extent that those things are going to be. So here, one of the co-game director, Anthony Newman, said that pushed us to make our level design even more open than it was in the first game. We've gone so far that there are actual entire story moments, entire combat encounters, full scripted sequences that you may completely miss. So, you know, that's definitely a step up from like, you know, like minor stuff like audio logs or something that you'd find in some of these other games that are more linear.
Trying to make it seem a little less on rails.
Yeah, like that's one of my favorite things about like Dark Souls or Bloodborne. Granted, anybody that wants to go back and play those games now, you can always just like look up a guide and see everything. But whenever those games were fresh and new, and you would play through them, you'd talk to your buddies about it, and they'd tell you about some stuff that you like completely missed. There was like whole bosses that you could just miss, or entire areas of the game that you wouldn't come across at all. And that, to me, that always made the world seem so much more interesting.
You can actually, like in my newest playthrough, I forgot the first time I played through Dark Souls 3, John was with me and like, oh, okay, now from here go over. And so I kind of had like a little bit of a guided experience.
Yeah.
And I didn't get too far. I think I just got past the Abyss Watchers in that playthrough. Mm-hmm. And then I don't remember what happened, but I got stuck and I felt like I didn't develop my character in the way I really wanted to. Mm-hmm. And so I restarted and recently and forgot like everything.
Yeah, so it was all fresh or it was all new in your mind.
I started approaching bosses from places where I hadn't before. I'm like, wait a minute, should I be here yet? I'm not in the right place. I should be back. You can do things out of order.
Yeah, I'll be interested. Yeah, that was all, the things that you could do out of order was pretty cool too. Like that that's why it felt more like you were exploring the area.
Yeah,
because you would just come across stuff organically. And maybe you just stumbled upon it just accidentally.
Yeah.
And granted, like Last of Us is definitely going to be more linear of a game than something like Bloodborne or whatever.
Right.
But I'm just wondering to the extent that these things are actually, because I mean, this is a lot of marketing speak at the end of the day. So I think that, Sony gets a lot of rap for making like linear third person games, and so does Naughty Dog. So
right now it's like gritty, apocalyptic. Third party,
Days Gone, and this game now.
It's like going back to Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter. They hopefully sometime in the near future they like tone it down a notch. Like,
it was really weird. Did you see they rebranded themselves as PlayStation Studios?
I did see that,
and they had like a new logo that was like these prismatic characters or whatever, and it showed like inside of the prismatic characters as they like turned it.
You're gonna mention how they had Sock Boy as one of the Sackboy. Sorry, Sock Boy.
Sackboy, one of the cringiest names in. I mean, I love Sackboy. He's adorable, and like I love Little Big Planet, but Sackboy is just hilarious.
Little Big Planet 3 sucked.
You didn't like it?
I didn't like 1 and 2 were amazing.
Okay, so I didn't play 1 and 2, so 3 was the only time I played Little Big Planet, and I could play it with Eileen, and we would play on the couch, and it was great.
Okay. I mean, I played that. Hazel and I played that together, too. But I don't know. Maybe just 1 and 2 had a special place in my heart, so that's 3 was like...
But I just, going back to that, we get a lot of dark, gritty, violent stuff from Sony now. And I get it because the gaming audience is getting so much older, especially with like people like us who we've been playing for decades now. We're in our 30s.
But you can't alienate the people who are now coming up, the kids that are now growing up and playing games, because they're the ones that play the most games.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
We don't have time to play games, so we're going to buy, like, how many games do you think you actually buy in a year?
Yeah, and it seems like Sony is perfectly willing to let like other people fill that void, like the people that make the Lego games and Nintendo with all their kid-friendly games and Fortnite and all that stuff. And it's like why are you showing like Sackboy and Knack? Trying to be like, see, we have like this wide range of IPs, and it's like, but you haven't touched those things or like made any like meaningful investment in anything like that in years now. Like,
yeah,
if you're gonna show that stuff in a video for your brand in 2020 when you haven't, like, you barely talked about Knack or Knack 2, and then you haven't launched a new Little Big Planet in forever.
I mean, maybe there's some kind of insinuation that Little Big Planet 4 is coming.
Possibly.
Which would, hey, I'd be looking forward to that.
Again, we were talking about sequels that we'd like to see. You were right. That Ratchet game came out. The Ratchet and Clank game, the reboot. ish. Came out in 2016, so I mean,
That's been a while.
so maybe we'll get something on that front too. I wouldn't mind it. Like it's nice. I like those kind of more fun, lighthearted adventures, and I can't really get them on PlayStation.
Yeah, you don't have to be dark or violent to be fun. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's a crutch that's being leaned on a lot by Sony.
Yeah, well, and to an extent, Microsoft too. Like they're both the mature,
I mean,
consoles.
I don't have a problem with those games. They're fun, and I get it. And there is that dystopian fantasy, you know. Everybody gets into that, I think, to some degree.
I mean, I can
But-
see the justification by being like, this is what we do, and we do it well, and we're not going to chase these other things that other people do well. But at the same time,
yeah.
by saying that, you're also admitting, like, we're going to leave this on the table and just let somebody else run with it instead of
Yeah.
taking that on. So, yeah. So, I don't know. I'm after this, back to The Last of Us. After this last trailer, I think it's more back on my radar. Like, not that it ever left my radar, but I'm more excited about it again.
I kind of...
And I know that we're on opposite sides because we had our little bet last episode.
No, okay. Hold up. I'm sticking to my bet. I still think Ghost will end up doing reviewing really well.
Oh, yeah.
I am now afraid after having seen that.
After the trailer?
Yeah. I am afraid I will now lose that bet.
I should have put that in the show doc. Are you scared, Joe? Do you see?
I was not really looking forward to this game, The Last of Us. Well, it wasn't that I wasn't... It's not that I wasn't looking forward to it, but like I think I'd said, I'm willing to wait till it comes down to $30 or $40. After having seen that, I'm leaning more towards, like, can't wait.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It just sucks that it leaked. And
I still don't know anything, so I don't care.
I know, but
like,
it seems like it just made the whole atmosphere surrounding the game like a little more jaded and a little more negative, and like
that's why I'm afraid that it will end up reviewing lower.
right. Yeah.
It's either that it's going to get a sympathy vote,
right.
you know, and get higher ratings because of that, or it's going to just tank it.
Oh yeah, and I mean it tackles like it has a diverse cast of characters. You get to play as, you know, Ellie as the main character, which is obviously, you know, the people that really care about representation and diversity and stuff in their games. They're really gonna, I think that could also help review scores a little bit too. Is just because like, hey, this is the politics that I want to see in my games, you know, and stuff like that. So I think that you're gonna have a huge swath of like I feel like it's going to review so differently from place to place.
So I think it was Pokemon Gold and Silver was the first game that I was aware of in my youth that actually allowed you to pick between playing as a boy or playing as a girl.
Uh-huh.
And every single generation of Pokemon since then has given you an option to play as a boy or as a girl.
Right.
And I always, every generation, have played as a girl.
Yeah.
Because it's like that. It is awesome. Like, it's awesome that you give me a choice. And every other game, I'm a guy.
Yeah.
So
as soon as I could pick a female character in like Warzone, I was like, yep.
And Skyrim, I always made female characters.
My character in Bloodborne was a lady.
Yeah.
You know, it's just more. I don't know.
Yeah. No. Same here in Dark Souls. My character were always female, and oh my goodness, whenever I played Borderlands, I always picked the yeah. So I mean, I'm all for stories with female characters. I'm all about it, like actual designed to be female. I'm actually really excited for it. Well, I mean, but there's been those before. I'm not saying it's not been done, but I feel like a lot of video games with female characters until now, you could just copy and paste a guy into those roles, and it would be the same game.
Yeah, I think that was like that. It's like a really easy way to do that representation. Is just like, well, we'll make them equal, but by making them equal, they're also like not unique.
Right.
You know,
it's like Tomb Raider. You can take her, Laura Croft out and put in some guy, and it's the same game.
Larry Croft. This is Larry Croft. So, moving on from Last of Us, I'm going to kick it over to you so that you can talk about Nolan, the trailer for the newest trailer for Christopher Nolan's next movie, Tenet.
Tenet.
It's Tenet. I know. I keep saying Tenet. Like
What I had there. Here's a tenant living in your
I got
house.
Some tenants. Yeah.
Okay. So this movie was nowhere on my radar for the longest, and then we talked about it in one episode, and I was a massive racist, and then that didn't happen anyway. And then I kind of was like, that trailer looks awesome, and then now this trailer, dude, this movie looks insane. I am so looking forward to this. This looks brilliant.
Yeah, so I guess give the for those uninitiated with like what the movie's about, I guess give them a little rundown.
You're putting me on the spot.
Well, okay. I mean, it doesn't really tell you a whole lot of like what the movie's
There's
entirely about.
Something to do with time. At some point in the trailer, there's this doctor. She tells him to shoot at this target, and what ends up happening is the bullet comes back from the target, goes in his gun, and he puts the gun down. And it's like, you didn't just point and shoot the gun. You actually caught the bullet going backward in time.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Looks good.
I have no
It
idea.
also feels like a half step to a Black James Bond.
Yeah, it's. I mean,
It breaks my brain.
Even like. Here.
Did you find an article I can read off of?
As described by WB. Sorry.
Okay, if you want to take it.
Okay. John David Washington is the new protagonist in Christopher Nolan's original sci-fi action spectacle Tenet. Armed with only one word, Tenet, and fighting for the survival of the entire world, the protagonist journeys through a twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. Not time travel. Inversion.
Well, yeah.
What does that mean?
It looks like basically the one article, which I can't find now, described it like it seems like time is moving forward and backward at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot all about the espionage aspect of it. So this feels like, to me, like it looks good, but it also feels like a half step to a Black James Bond.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, he's always... Do you remember Tom Hardy's character in... crazy ideas? Or like, he has such high concept Inception?
Mm-hmm.
Not like
Yep.
Nolan does James Bondish characters very well, and like to me, that's what he Tom Hardy's character from Inception felt like. Plus, he's British.
I would love
if Christopher Nolan directed a James Bond movie.
Yes.
It'd be so good.
It'd be sick.
It'd be
And
fantastic. Especially with how good he is with like big budget like set pieces in movies, like the start of Dark Knight Rises and all that stuff with the plane and the inverted plane and all that crap. And you made Joker.
Who's the guy that I'm thinking of that should play James Bond? Everybody says it, and I completely agree.
I feel like that's right there.
Well, yeah. Instead of
Idris
having
Elba?
him be,
Yes.
Yeah.
you keep him the
Would
same
just be
character,
amazing.
Yeah, he'd be so good. I love Idris
tone him
Elba.
down
He's
a
like
notch.
Him,
one of my favorite
Really,
actors.
what made the
As
Joker
James
exceptional in
Bond
those movies was
and
that
Christopher Nolan as director, it'd just be
way ahead of everyone.
sign me up.
Yeah, I think that Nolan has like enough like crazy ideas, or like he has such high concept ideas, and they're not like they're not like stuff that nobody's ever thought of before or whatever. But he executes them in such an interesting and compelling way.
Yes.
And I think that in order to have like an interesting and compelling James Bond, you need to have an interesting and compelling villain. And just doing what he did with like the Joker and how he interpreted that, and and Bane. Like he's very good at, you know, if you changed Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises and put a, you know, you made them a James Bond film, and you grounded, you know, you made Joker like less of a crazy maniacal clown and just made him like, you know, just a generic bad guy. Like,
Well,
I feel like that's a James Bond movie right there.
Well, yeah, instead of having him be, you keep him the same character, but you tone him down a notch, because really what made the Joker exceptional in those movies was that he was a thinker.
Yeah.
He was way ahead of everybody
Yeah.
all the time.
Well, yeah, and you know, like Bane had like his own ethos that he kind of followed, and you know,
He was like the cult leader.
right, yeah. And I feel like those are perfect kind of characters to put into a James Bond movie. You know, because to me, a James Bond movie is made by the villains. You know, because James Bond is interesting as he is, but he's kind of like an archetype.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of stays static throughout the movies. You know, like they change the tone a bit and make him like darker or more lighthearted. Or
I love the new James Bonds.
yeah, I do too. I don't know. I always found the old ones kind of silly.
Yes,
You know, it felt
and I
like,
think they meant to be.
right. It felt like an action movie, like being shot by people that are like doing a swimsuit, like a swimsuit ad or something. I don't know.
Well, I always viewed them as something that they were intentionally over the top, like they were poking fun at the over the top manly person.
Yeah,
That's what I always got the impression. It wasn't meant to be like super serious. It was.
I don't know, because like if they weren't meant to be super serious, then I don't know like what. They're campy.
They're poking fun at the genre at the same time that they are those movies.
Yeah, they basically are that genre, but they're also like
In the same way that
that levity.
in the same way that Ninja Turtles is a comic book and is a comic book show, but it actually started because they were making fun of comics.
Yeah. So I really, and I think that this is intentional. I really have no idea what what Tenet is going to actually end up being about. I know that it's about like the nature of time, but also they've come out and said that it's like not a time travel movie.
Well, that's kind of like how he did Inception too.
Right.
And well, before that came out, they made it so that you didn't know what it was going to be about.
Right. Right.
How it was going to work. And I think that's part of the magic is until you see it, you're not going to.
Yeah. Christopher Nolan likes to keep a lot of stuff in the dark.
Yeah.
With his movies, he gives you just enough to like where it's like interesting. It's like a little brain worm.
Yep.
And then you're just like intrigued, and then they slowly peel away like a little bit more layers, but they never fully reveal it to you. And I think that's why his movies are A, so good, and B, they do really well at the box office, is because it's like the complete opposite of modern movie trailers, where they give you like a quick cut preview of what the trailer's going to be like, and then they give you a trailer that is the whole movie.
Yeah.
You know, where like everything's explained to you. There's just like, bleh, here's the whole, bleh. You don't even have to watch this now. You can just check out the trailer.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, and like with this, I'm like, I really want to see this in theaters, because I mean, Nolan makes great movies to go see in theaters.
This is one of the first movies that I've one of the first non MCU movie that I've like, I have to see this in theaters in a long time.
Yeah, I think people tend to have a negative, especially like critics tend to have a negative view of like spectacle movies, but that's like what gets butts and seats.
Yeah.
You know, like you need to have something, you need to have a reason to go to a theater, something that this movie gives you different that you can't get at home, you know.
While we're on this topic, I do wonder how it's going to work with all the beer virus going on right now.
Well,
what did we agree to call it? We agreed to call it something else now. Oh, no, that was it. Okay.
It was the beer virus.
Yeah. Yeah, well, with the beer virus going on, how are we going to do... Hey, the BV.
I got the BV. Got a bad case of BV. HBV.
How is that going to work with movie theaters? I know that we were talking about how they were planning on opening up, like doing a soft open and then having like Mulan and some of the other. What was the other one? Other big one coming soon.
Well, there's Mulan
This one.
and Tenet.
Yeah. I do wonder how that's going to come. How they're going to make it work. Like every third seat, someone can sit down.
It's probably gonna be like every third seat, like every other row kind of thing.
And then are they going to like scan everybody's forehead as you walk in to check
temperatures?
Yeah, like
maybe, I don't know, but I'm gonna guess that they're gonna have like no concession stands.
Oh yeah.
And like, somebody's just gonna be like at the bathroom, like sanitizing everything as you go.
Do you think that during the time where they have no concessions, they'll allow outside snack?
No, because they don't want people like touching their face and stuff. I think that's the whole thing. You touch you pull your mask off to eat some popcorn, touch your face, get some saliva on your hands, touch your seat.
But the studies all show that it doesn't really spread through objects.
I know. But okay, I mean, I think that I'll be interested to see, not just, obviously I'm interested to see these movies. I'm just interested to see what the box office is going to be like for these movies too. Especially when people have been like dying to get out of the house, dying to go see some entertainment. I know that like box office isn't as huge as it used to be. Like, I mean, granted, we're getting billion-dollar Marvel movies and comic book movies and stuff like that, but movies that aren't really doing too well at theaters.
The people want the superhero movies.
I know, but like, okay, so we have something like Tenet though, and something like Mulan. Those are the movies that get butts in seats, and it'll be coming, in the summer, right at the peak of blockbuster season, right when everybody's been dying to get out of the house. Like,
June 17th? Question mark.
Yeah.
I thought that's what our.
As for when we'll see Tenet, Warner Brothers hasn't officially moved the film off of its July 17th release date just yet. But the trailer conspicuously left out the exact release date, only noting that the film will be coming to theaters. Do not expect Tenet to surprise drop on HBO Max. Speaking of HBO Max, the Snyder Cut.
Yeah. I don't understand what the deal is. I really don't.
So the deal is that the internet made a big old fuss about the last Justice League movie because people that really like DC are desperate for DC to do something good, even though everything that they do kind of sucks in a way. So there was Joss Whedon ended up coming in and finishing the Justice League movie because Zack Snyder was directing it, and then he had a personal tragedy that kind of pulled him out of it. And so Joss Whedon came in and had to like redo a whole bunch of it. And even what we got after Joss Whedon, who's an admittedly very talented director and writer, even after that, the movie was still bad, right? And so there was buzz that there was a full version of like all the stuff that Zack Snyder had put into the movie that was like cut out basically. And so once the internet got wind of that, they basically have been flipping out ever since. Like, we need the Zack Snyder cut. We need the Snyder cut of this movie. And so finally, I guess Warner decided that they were going to bring it out to theaters. So it'll finally see the light of day on Warner Media's HBO Max in 2021. So next year, they're going to spend an additional $20 million to get this whole thing put together and put out for HBO Max, which is a big win for HBO Max because, they want people to be using their service and stuff, and this is the only place you're going to be able to see it. Do I think that the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League is going to be good? No. But people are really convinced that it's somehow going to be good.
Yeah, DC has really sucked for a long time, movies wise. The Batman movies are really the only ones that I've found any good.
Well, yeah, and I mean, even the new, like, do you like Affleck as Batman?
No.
I thought it was pretty boring.
Yeah, I thought that
It was a very one note kind of portrayal of Batman. He's just always so pissed.
yeah.
He just always seems so mad. Like Christian Bale seemed cool, as Batman.
It was like Affleck took Bale's angriest moments as Batman and was like, I'm going to make that just all the time.
Right.
That's Batman.
He's like, swear to me all the time. Yeah. He got that tattooed on his chest.
Swear to me.
Dash Christian Bale. It's like a quote.
Yeah. I thought that Batman v Superman was awful.
Batman v Superman was terrible. Wonder Woman was okay.
It was okay.
I liked it. I think it was the best DC movie that they've put out. Of the new ones. Post Dark Knight trilogy or whatever.
I will say I liked Wonder Woman more than I liked Captain Marvel.
Okay. I still haven't seen Captain Marvel.
I fell asleep.
What I saw of Captain Marvel looked terrible.
It was bad.
It was like the Skrull. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like they're talking about my scroll. Okay. But here's, and like we were just talking about, like, superhero movies get people's butts into seats. Like, despite how much we think this movie was terrible, the movie cost $300 million to make, and it grossed $650 million worldwide. But it's at a 40% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Like,
I don't trust Rotten Tomatoes' opinion on anything.
They're bought tomatoes. They're bought in tomatoes. That's the joke. Like, they're definitely they're partially owned by film companies to.
The number of times. So I still fall for it. I'll look at the tomato and tomato meter, and I'll be like, I'm not going to watch this. It has like no tomatoes. It's like 0%. I'm not going to watch it. And then I'll watch a movie not having seen the tomato meter, go and look it up later, and I'll be like, that got 20%?
Yeah.
That was brilliant.
It's also like, this is just like a holdover from just a bad time, like a bad experiment for DC, it's the Zack Snyder dark gritty kind of take on DC superheroes did not work. I didn't mind Aquaman.
I didn't even see it.
I thought it was all right. I think Jason Momoa has enough charisma to carry through a bad movie. Kind of like Henry Cavill does not, because his portrayal of Superman was just like so not good. But
I'll be completely honest. I haven't been interested in any superhero movies for a long time. It's like the only movies that put me in the seat were Infinity War and Endgame, and then the Iron Man movies, and then for the most part that was it.
Yeah,
like it just got to the point where it's like there's 3 of them coming out every year. I'm over it.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing, is like, we're looking for DC to do something good, but we're also inundated with all these other superhero movies from Marvel, and we might be reaching peak capacity for
like zombie movies, like 5 years ago.
Yeah, or like around when 28 Days Later happened, and then everybody wanted to be the next 28 Days Later. Yeah. But I just mean, like, it seems like a holdover because, like, they obviously knew that these weren't working. Then, as this Variety article notes, they made a pivot creatively to get away from this tightly connected cinematic universe that they were trying to build, to doing more of like these loosely assembled collection of comic book adaptations, like the Joker, like the Joker movie with Todd Phillips, and Joaquin Phoenix. That made over $1 billion at the box office and cost well less than Justice League. So I mean, it made more. It costs less. It made more by a lot. It made more by almost like 40%, and it costs so much less. And it's like they're trying to. I'm interested to see, like, they have the new Batman coming out with Robert Pattinson, and it looks to be more along the lines of something like the Joker, where it's more of a personal, not so much personal, but like a more toned down, smaller scale kind of story.
I still say I'd love to see the like old, like, what is it,
The
30s Batman.
No, the Adam West. Those are like the 60s Batman.
Yeah, I know. I was exaggerating because I couldn't think of that. But running around with like coin boxes.
The Detective Comics. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see it.
I just, like Marvel does their thing, and we get a lot of Marvel doing the Marvel thing. And DC tried to do something different, but also the same. Where they wanted to build a cinematic universe just like Marvel, but they wanted to do it differently, and their different was dark and gritty.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
yeah,
that's not what people responded to. And it's not like that Joker wasn't dark and gritty either, but it was, I don't know, it was less over the top while also being dark and gritty. Like, they did dark and gritty in an actual meaningful way versus having it be like dark and gritty but also spectacle.
I think they need to stay away from, like, they saw what Marvel had pulled off with their universe and just had to do the same thing. Oh, well, we can, who had the idea? What came first, the Avengers or Justice League? Not cinematically. I mean, comic book wise.
Probably Justice League, right?
Probably. It's a shame then that they lost out in the cinematically.
September 1963 for the Avengers. $1960
For Justice
for
League.
Justice League.
Yeah, okay.
So I mean, around the same time, but like the whole team up idea was, I guess, technically started by, at least Justice League technically premiered first, but they're around the same thing.
Yeah. And then they lose out to Marvel.
Well,
cinematically.
I think it just comes down to like the talent that you've got around you, like Zack Snyder is a good director when he makes the things that he's good at making, which is like 300 and
I think that,
didn't he make Sin City?
I think so.
Yeah. Those were dark and gritty, but also stylish movies.
Mm-hmm.
And these other movies were like dark and gritty without any of the style or flair.
Well, I think it's you say the people that the talent you're surrounded by. I also think that talent, you can pull a lot more of it when you're freaking Disney.
That's a fair point. They have more money to spend too. Like, the best talents can just come to you because you're like, well, here's twice as much as what DC's going to pay you.
Basically.
Are you a fan of wrestling that lives in the Pittsburgh area? Do you enjoy punk rock? How about diversity and inclusion? Well, Enjoy Wrestling, a new promotion set to launch in 2020, is here for you. Though they're a startup, the folks at Enjoy have years of experience booking punk shows, promoting bands, and putting out records. They're also pretty well versed in wrestling, too, having done commentary, videography, graphic design, and social media for many high-profile independent companies. Enjoy Wrestling wants to bring the most talented wrestlers out there to Pittsburgh, regardless of gender, race, or sexual orientation. That same ethos applies to their audience as well, as they strive to create an inclusive and diverse wrestling community aimed at developing a supportive environment for marginalized fans. You can find Enjoy Wrestling on Twitter @EnjoyWrestle, on Instagram @Instagram.com/EnjoyWrestling, or you can contact them directly via email at enjoywrestlingpgh@gmail.com. All right, we've come down to it, the moment you guys have been waiting for, our top 10 games list. again, these are in no particular order for either of us. We've both got our own lists of our top 10.
Before we roll, this is by no means definitive.
No.
We kind of decided we wanted to do this a little bit on the fly, admittedly, but we're going to probably have a little bit more specific lists as time goes. Like our FPS list, our horror list, and from there maybe we'll revisit and say, okay, do we still feel like the same games are going to make this list?
So yeah, it's much more of a catchy title to say our top 10 games instead of being like Evan's top 10 games that he can remember as of May 2020. So yeah, this is definitely not like a cemented in.
No, I think it'll actually be interesting to see how our lists evolve as time goes on, because if we go, maybe a year from now, we revisit this and see, compare it to our more specific lists, rebuild it and see if we end up with the same stuff. I think that'll be an interesting experiment.
Okay, so the way I want this to work, we'll go down our lists. I'll give one, and one of us will give one, the other one will give one, and after you say the name, the game, then just give like the briefest reason why you love this game so much, and like why it's important, either to the industry, to gaming in general, or to you. If there's like, this game helped me through a personal moment in my life or something like that, or I think this game changed the game in terms of this or that.
I think most of mine are just going to end up being personal reasons.
That's
for
fine.
The most part, but
this is our lists. These are, again, by no means saying like these are the best games of all time, and if you don't like them, then you're dumb. It's just like, no, these are our games that we like. So,
yep. Would you like to take it? How about this though? If we do have a couple that we agree on, we won't do them twice. We'll just at the same time. So when you get to
that sounds great. Yeah.
Okay.
So my first game is Grand Theft Auto Vice City. And anybody that plays games knows why GTA, particularly the first couple on like from 3, Vice City and San Andreas. Anybody that plays games knows why those games are amazing, specifically for what they did to make open world games what they are today.
We have open world games, I think, because of GTA.
Yes, and I think that Vice City is the best of those games because it takes a point in time and it takes a setting and it so embraces that setting and lampoons it while also kind of being one of the better genre pieces of those of like 80s media, where there's plenty of movies and TV shows and stuff that like embrace the 80s, and like I feel like GTA might do the best of all of them, to be honest. Like Vice City was a game that I got with my PS2 that my parents got for me, and I played it until the disc wouldn't work. And
then
I rented a copy and switched out my copies and took it back the same day. I was like, this one doesn't work. And then I got another copy and played it some more. And it's just, there's a reason why people are still trying to remake Vice City in like Grand Theft Auto 4's engine today. And it's for me, it's my favorite GTA game.
I don't remember if it was Vice City or if it was San Andreas that I played the most of. I don't remember, but I do remember being absolutely in love with it. I would go over to my buddy's house after school, like every day, even though I was supposed to go straight home, and just stay over there and play Vice City for hours. So,
yep. All right.
And most of that was just running around and filling out the police meter.
Oh yeah, that's another big part of GTA that's always been great, is just the fact that it's like, just cause havoc if you want. Screw it. Have fun.
And you can do it forever.
And yeah, you can literally do it forever.
I don't think I ever did anything story-wise ever.
And I think that Vice City has the best soundtrack of any GTA game. I think it has some of the best characters of any GTA game. It's got Ray freaking Liotta as the main character.
Yeah.
Like, Jenna Jameson was in it as a porn star. Like, there's so many, like, actual celebrities that are in that game. After GTA 3, people were like, wow, these games are awesome. I want to be in this. I want to be involved with this.
Was that the rise of more actual celebrity voiceover for video games?
I mean, I wouldn't say, like, I couldn't say that, like, yes, that was definitely why. But, like, I mean, I would assume that that's one of the stops along the way.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Joe, let's get your first selection.
I put Metroid Fusion I want to say as my first choice, but not in any order. So Metroid Fusion is the first one I'll bring up.
Okay. What is Metroid Fusion?
Metroid Fusion was the first of the Metroid games on the Game Boy Advance.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when this game came out, my older brother had played it, and he actually lent me his Game Boy Advance and a light because you didn't have backlighting.
Mm-hmm.
and he lent me his copy of the game, and I remember
the light. Oh man.
I remember it was actually, like, even with the light, if you were in a lit room, you actually couldn't see the screen because it would glare. So I remember hiding in my closet to play this game.
He was like, "Get out of here!" Like, built a Metroid Fusion fort in your closet.
And this Metroid Fusion kind of took. So, like, Metroid is a space, like, exploration game. Kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if exploration's the right word, maybe, but, like, you had your Samus, chick in a power suit, the original female in gaming, 1987.
Yeah,
and anyway, you're in a power suit and you slowly unlock upgrades and stuff. Well, Metroid Fusion actually introduced some really cool features into the game, really cool story concepts, and, like, made what?
I'm just looking at your list and laughing.
Why?
just keep going.
Well, anyway, it had this, like, really cool moment that I'll never forget. It's, like, one of my favorite. It's a small thing, like, now looking back, but when I was little and I didn't have a lot of it. I don't remember how old I would have been. But there's a moment early on. Remember I said I was hiding in my closet so that I could see. Well, there's this, like, really special moment. You're like, get on an elevator, and you are finding out that this virus that got onto the ship is capable of replicating itself. Well, your suit had been infected with this at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And she had to have the suit fit surgically removed from her body.
Mm-hmm.
And so her suit was in a box on the. This is spoilers. How long ago was it?
No, you can spoil Metroid Fusion.
Okay.
If you haven't played Metroid Fusion by now, tough shit.
The box with your power suit in it is in the cargo bay. You start finding out that these things can reanimate, and, like, probably right about the time as the player, you're starting to realize the implications. Mm-hmm. You're in this hallway, you go down, you get on the elevator, and right as you start going down the elevator, the wall opposite blows out, and Samus's fully powered power suit walks out on its own and, like, looks at the camera, and, like, this ghostly image of her face is behind the helmet, and that is probably the first time in video game history, for, like, my personal history, that I had legitimate chills from a game and, like, freaked out. It was like, oh man, this thing's coming for me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's why it's on the list. It's really near and dear to my heart.
I like that it's like you were saying. You said before we started to get into this, like, it's kind of tied to a lot of your stories are going to be tied to, like, personal moments. But, like, that's an important thing, though, is, like, I think that the games that we remember the most are also ones that, like, elicit this response from us, at least in, like, either in an emotional way or a mental kind of thought process way.
Yeah.
And to get into our next thing, which we, you
yes,
you said that we would agree on a few. Hollow Knight does that for me. I love Hollow Knight because it's a super, like, I think it's a very emotional game for me because it has like this ability to be like super whimsical and also like really upsetting, and like it almost makes me feel sad because of like the world and the characters that exist in Hollow Knight and what has happened to the world, and like your Hollow Knight exists to basically continuously come back and try to rid this world of like the evil that exists in it. And it's just like the cyclical nature of it kind of, I don't know, man. It's just every time I play it, the combination of the music and like the voice acting where everybody, nobody really actually speaks, but everybody has like me, but like
it's so magical. Yeah.
Everybody has their own different voice, and just the way that they, with such simple things, elicit emotion from you is just so good.
So Hollow Knight is also on my 10 list. I initially wasn't sure if I wanted to actually have it in my top 10.
It's a relatively new game. Ish.
But it just, it's like you say, its ability to generate emotion from the player is, it just can't be ignored. I mean, it's a $15 game.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is in the, as a game outside of the mental, it's $15. All of the DLC is free. You could probably play for well over 100 hours.
Yeah.
And I mean, you just can't argue with that. And then it's gorgeous. It's action packed. There's tons to explore. I mean, it just keeps on delivering.
I think the thing that it really does is the same thing that like Dark Souls does, where you explore the world. There's little nooks and crannies that you can find. You're always finding new things, new unique things. And every new area has like its own personality and stuff. And it's easily my favorite Metroidvania of all time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Easily.
I actually agree. And that includes Metroid games. They do such a good... The exploration is so fun. It doesn't feel tedious. You don't feel like, I'm now going in like Metroidvanias have a tendency, they get you to a point where you're just walking in circles like, I don't know where I'm supposed to go.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I just unlocked. Like, I got this ability to do this thing now, but where was that spot? And like, the idea is that it's supposed to make you explore and relook, but because some of these things are in these deep nooks and crannies, you end up at some point, like just wandering in circles trying to find what particular cranny it was in.
Right. And I also felt like... Oh, sorry, go on.
Well, I was just going to say that Hollow Knight actually does a good job of making sure that doesn't happen. You still get the feeling of I have to explore and re-find it. Mm-hmm. But it's doable. You don't feel lost.
Well, and I think that I could criticize it for not giving you enough like fast travel points.
Yes,
you do have to backtrack. You do have to backtrack a decent amount, but also I think that part of the reason that I got to have such like a connection with the places in the world is because it made me go through them so much, and just spending all that time in those places just cements them in your mind.
Well, I didn't mean to just jump right over. You were talking about the emotional aspect of the game, and it's like the whole game is like this hand-drawn art style. Mm-hmm. It's very dark and gritty. Don't know about gritty. Dark.
Yeah.
But like
it's very Tim Burton-esque.
Yeah, very much. But it's got the music is like, how like this whimsical kind of like, how would you describe it? It just, you feel so lonely all the time. Like from the get-go, you just feel like that's what I would say is the overwhelming feeling that I got playing the game is you're just lonely.
Well, and then there's certain areas that have no music.
Yeah.
You know, where you're supposed to feel like you're stuck in like these vast caves, or that you're like, as when you go into the deep nest and all you can hear is just the sound of squishy, you know,
your feet.
Yeah. And you're supposed to feel like claustrophobic and surrounded by all these grubs and like all these enemies, and you're just like crawling through like just tunnels of gross. Ugh. And
I think the city. What are those?
The City of Tears.
That is probably my favorite part of the whole map in the game, because it's just you get to see what's happened to the world, and it's just desolate, filled with enemies, but it's so vast and sprawling. That game is so good. $15. Check out
Go
Hollow
buy
Knight.
it, please. That's I'm just gonna tell you, just go buy the damn thing. All right, Joe, do you want to get into your next one?
Yeah, absolutely. My next choice is Mario Kart Double Dash. We have to redo this bit. I don't want to redo this bit because I made a comment about you being wrong, and I want that to stay in.
I mean, you could just say it again.
So I picked Mario Kart Double Dash. We had talked about
the second best kart racer of all time.
Again, you're allowed to be wrong. So Mario Kart Double Dash
prerogative,
is brilliant, I think, because it didn't just feel like a kart racer. It felt like they integrated strategy into the game really well. Mm-hmm. You had to work to get your turbo boost. You had to like rock the stick back and forth at the same time to kind of get and boost at the right time. And
right.
Every one of the racers actually had their own special item, so you could mix and match to get the right items for your play style. And then when you were actually driving, if the person in the back of the cart already had an item and you ran into like a single item box, mm-hmm. you wouldn't pick anything up. So you had to like switch players, let them pick it up, and then you could switch back, and then you could decide who was riding, because whoever was in the back was the one that threw the item.
Right. So
you could actually switch who was back there to decide who threw what when.
Uh-huh.
Which, I mean, it was a whole,
a new layer of complexity.
Yeah. You had to think all the time about what you wanted to do next. And I mean, it was it's a lot more. I mean, I know it's super light strategy when compared to some things, but
like
it's
an actual strategy game.
Right, but it's a kart racer.
All right. And
the fact that there's anything there at all is really impressive.
All right, and you're like flying really fast around a track. It's, makes you think on your feet.
Yeah, and I also felt like I feel like Nintendo, the newer karts or the new Mario Karts that they've done, some of the magic was lost because it's like it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what character you choose; you always have the same item. And then when it comes time for like doing unlocks and stuff, you unlock things by how many coins you pick up, not by the races that you win.
Uh-huh.
And I thought that ruined it because like part of the fun was like, I know if I can beat this race in first, I'll unlock so and so. And you actually had to work to get firsts. You don't.
So you could finish in a terrible placement, but as long as you got coins, you had stuff.
Eventually, you'll start unlocking things.
Yeah,
which I think it takes away from the magic.
Yeah, it kind of. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It does leave it open for people that aren't very good at it to unlock stuff, but at the same time, like, part of it is the challenge too, right?
Yeah, it takes away from your feeling of, like, because you'll beat something in first and then not unlock anything because guess what? You didn't
get enough coins.
Yeah.
All right.
And you're like, oh, well, what was the point?
Right.
One more note on it was that in Mario Kart Double Dash, if you came below, I think it was third place, so you at least got it like you placed.
Uh-huh.
The music that would play was so sad, and your character would like be punching the steering wheel and be Why? It was like they took that out.
Yeah. This one was more. You mean Double Dash was like more comedic?
Oh yeah, they definitely. Well, no, I think they didn't want people to feel bad, like
Right.
kids losing it,
Right.
which I get, but like it was hysterical to me. I would sometimes the song was so catchy, I would sometimes lose on purpose and then just let it loop.
You can't possibly give a player anything other than positive reinforcement in these games. You know?
All right,
Anyhow,
your next choice, sir.
my next choice is kind of a cop out because I've combined two games into one choice, and my choice for my next game is Hotline Miami 1 and 2.
Okay, I broke the rule. Go ahead.
Okay. So Hotline Miami 1 and 2 makes my list because to me it's a combat puzzle game where each level is just a series of rooms and you die in one hit, and so do the bad guys. And everything is very deadly, and it's always a frantic it's a frantic like tornado of things that you can do, where you're picking up guns that people dropped when they died and like using them, but they all have like limited ammo pools and stuff. So somebody might have, an enemy might have unloaded their whole shotgun at you and you didn't know, and you pick it up and you go to shoot somebody and you're out of ammo and you get killed or something like that. And then the levels change so that there's unique stuff that you have to do in each level. And the soundtrack, dude, the soundtrack in this game is amazing. Both games, the soundtrack's just phenomenal. And I like that it takes this weird it takes this weird turn into like all these conspiracy kind of twists and turns with like, what's actually going on behind the scenes of these games, and like you're not actually in control, you're just part of like a something beyond your control and stuff like that. You're like caught up in this whole thing that you can't actually really solve. And it's hyper violent, but it's also hyper stylized. It's like a top down kind of old school pixel art game. And I can't recommend it enough.
How long a game is it?
It probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 hours long. And when the first game came out, it just came out of nowhere. My friend sent me some footage of it and was like, dude, we need to play this. And then I bought it, and I sat there, and from the moment I bought it, I sat there and played it to completion. Didn't stop. Played the whole game through. It consumed me, and it made me sit at my desk and just play the whole damn thing. And the same thing with the second one, which is even more impressive because, I had already experienced Hotline Miami. It wasn't something unique to me at that point, but it just delivered more of that. And I did the same thing with that game. I sat there and played it till the very end in one sitting. And yeah, I can't recommend the games enough. They're so stylish, they're interesting, and they're challenging. Like, they're not easy games, and I love them for it. So, highly recommend both Hotline Miamis.
I do have. Which one's on Game Pass right now? Are they both?
I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure.
I think it's just the first one, and I have it on my Game Pass, but I haven't played it yet. And after that glowing review, I may just have to do it.
I played it on PC. You can play it with a controller, but I played it with keyboard and mouse, and it's so tight. And what they did with the second game, where they expanded the things that you can do with like the weapons, and like you could dual wield, and when you play, you get different masks that you wear, and they give you different perks and abilities and stuff like that. And they expanded those in the next game, and you could change out the masks to try to tackle levels in different ways to see which was most effective and stuff. So there was a lot of replay value in it too. So even though it's a short game, you could play it multiple times.
Right. And to further proof of the fandom.
Yeah. It's this is one of my prized pieces for sure.
Okay, so my next is also on your list. This is another duplicate, so we can maybe talk about this one.
Well-deserved duplicate.
Yes, so maybe we'll get into this one a little bit. Halo Combat Evolved. So this one's going to be a little bit of a roller coaster, because when I first played Halo on the original Xbox, Halo CE, I actually hated it at first, because I had never had an experience with a third with a true 3D game before. I'd played on the N64, played that style of 3D, but it was still kind of a new concept at the time, like true 3D, and definitely not a first-person shooter. And it was on demo at, like I said, it was either Electronics Boutique or Babbage's. I think it might have been Babbage's. In the Park City Mall. And I remember went past the display stand and I was watching I didn't see anyone else play, and that's why I didn't get the right impression, because I jumped on and like immediately was just like running around pointing at the ground, and then something, I'd see an enemy, he'd like come up to me and I'd like zip up past him and never land a shot, and it's like this game sucks. And it was only later me and my brother-in-law actually sat down and we had a special experience with each other.
Yeah, I remember your experience.
Maybe saying it that way made it sound not right, but I'll leave it there.
It was a wholesome.
Yes, it was wholesome.
Yeah,
ish.
Wholesome-ish.
But we had played through the whole game in basically like one sitting, and it was just fantastic. It was one of my first experiences with a co-op multiplayer game, and just I loved it.
Yeah.
The bond of helping each other out through tough spots, and getting each other's back, and just having the whole co-op thing. It was brilliant. I loved the game.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of co-op games, and I think that the Halo series is just a shining example of like how good co-op can be, and that you can play through the whole game with somebody else.
Yeah,
it's not some like stilted secondary experience that they built.
And
it's
all
just
of that,
the game.
all of that is doesn't even mention the fact that it looks amazing. It plays
still
amazing.
Looks really good. Yeah, it still looks really good. I still have my original copy of Halo CE for PC, like the disc copy.
Yeah.
And I put it on, and it still looks great, even though like you can go and play the updated version on the MCC or whatever on PC. But the multiplayer, like the LAN parties, were a huge thing for me that I had never experienced before, something like that on console. And I think that just in terms of like its impact in gaming, like it did so much. It was like one of the first huge, if not the first huge console shooter. And obviously Halo 2 was like a Xbox Live kind of jumping off point where everybody, but local LAN parties and stuff, just playing with your friends in Halo, and all the maps, Blood Gulch, and all, especially like the single player levels. The Silent Cartographer is like the opening level in the game, is like also it's not the opening level. You're on the Pillar of Ottoman in the first level, but the next level after that is like one of my favorite FPS levels of all time. And the AI is still really good. All the enemies are unique and fun to fight. All the weapons are great to use. The sound, like the Marty O'Donnell's freaking score and all the music from that game is just great. Yeah, it's just the definition of a classic game.
Absolutely. Wholeheartedly.
Yep.
I'm actually sitting here thinking of, like, if we were forced to put this in some kind of order, it would be hard not to make that number one. It'd be hard to find a reason not to make it number one.
I think it's definitely one of the few more replayable games that I have on this list. Like, if I was forced to sit down and play these games, if this top 10 was also ranked in, like, if you were stuck on a desert island and you had one game that you could play, and it was the only game that you could play, it's one of the only, it's up there in terms of games that I could like legitimately play for the most time. Like some of these other games, like I don't know how many times I could play Hotline Miami 1 and 2, but I feel like I could legitimately play Halo CE for thousands of hours and never get bored with it, particularly because it is a multiplayer game too. So like going at it from like, if I could,
You could switch from co-op campaign to the regular campaign to multiplayer, and so you get a fresh experience. And especially since multiplayer is never the same experience,
Right.
So I can see that.
Yep.
So your next one.
My next one is Bloodborne. Bloodborne is amazing. Oh man, I think Bloodborne is one of the quintessential game that I think of when I think of my favorite games of all time, which is crazy to me because I never thought that a game that came out so recently could be that for me, because I'm so like a decent amount of these games that are on my list are fairly older ish. I mean, it's about half and half in terms of the age of these games, but I think that I'd never really appreciated what Bloodborne did until me and a friend decided that we were going to figure out games to play through. Just, get together and hang out for a couple hours and just kind of chip away at a game. And our first game that we decided to do was Bloodborne. And there's just something so special about Bloodborne. I mean, everybody knows about the Dark Soulsy, you die, you go get your stuff back, or else if you die along the way, you lose it and all that stuff. And it definitely has a lot of stuff that happens. Bloodborne has a lot of DNA, obviously, related to those other games, like Dark Souls, because it's from the same people that made it. That's why they call it the Soulsborne, that whole lineage of games and stuff like that. They do share a lot of DNA, but I think that what Bloodborne really does for me is the setting, the Victorian Gothic setting. The city is just so well realized and beautiful.
Very eldritch.
Yeah.
Very Lovecraftian.
And I love the story because it was, the downfall of all the downfall of Yharnam and like the whole world of Bloodborne is their search for knowledge and kind of wanting to, like, they discover the power that they can get from the old blood, and then there's two different sides that want to decide what to do with this knowledge, and they both go in different directions, and they both spawn these like abominations that are just like otherworldly, godlike kind of creatures. And it doesn't spoon feed you a story. It's the ultimate, I would say it's the ultimate example of world building, where they just give you a world, and it doesn't need to tell you about the world. It's just the world exists, and you kind of figure it out as you go, and you kind of learn the nature of the world as you play it.
Yeah, they don't hold your hand.
And I also like it because the combat is just so much faster than Dark Souls. It's very in your face. It always pushes you to be on the offensive. And there's so many different weapons and so many different styles of play that you can do, and which is really strange because on first play, I never thought that I would play as use any different weapon than what I started with, and that I used through my whole first playthrough. And then just realizing how flexible that game is in terms of how you want to play it, and like how you upgrade yourself, and just like boss fights are kind of a lost art. And that's like my favorite thing I think that I get from the whole Soulsborne series in general, is that they do boss fights in better than anybody. I think, they make these bosses feel bigger than life, and you feel terrified of them. And yeah, I think that's all I can really say. It's just,
I never made it very far in that game, but that is one thing that definitely sticks out, is when you come up to a boss. And like most of the Dark Souls games are like that. That's like kind of the point. That's the one thing that I think they really, really get right, is that you feel powerless against the bosses. But then when you actually win, it's that, I did that. I got it.
right.
That accomplishment. Okay. I'd agree with that.
Your next game, Joe.
The Last of Us.
Oh,
The Last of Us is definitely in my top 10. This game, I mean, it is just another zombie game. You can say that.
Yeah.
But I think...
But the execution of it, though.
But I don't think it came... It was early on when all that was happening, I think.
Mm-hmm. The whole zombie craze.
Yeah. It was still relatively early, so I don't think they should get too much flack on that end. But the feels that this game... I mean, it elicits so much feeling, and they tackle so many different things, like coming into Pittsburgh in the game, which was really cool.
Yeah. I couldn't wait to get to that part, obviously, because,
Yeah, because we're here. Yeah. And then you get ambushed and everything, and this is right after you get the truck. You finally,
Yeah.
and all the stuff. Like, you every inch of that game, you feel like you are fighting for. Like, every bit of it, you're like, I have to scratch every little bit of existence I can, and then you get beaten down. It just, like, that game is so brutal. It's so good.
It's brutal, but it also gives you, like, hope because of Joel and Ellie, and, like, they're so human.
Yeah.
And, like, that is the hope, is that, like, eventually we can, even in the darkest of times, you have, like, that beautiful relationship that they have.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of horror media and a lot of, like, zombie media is all about, like, yeah, let's see the blood and guts. Let's see, all the worst things. You want it to be, like, super dour and sad and stuff like that. And, like, it just shows you, like, that there's the ability to, like, grow and love and stuff.
Well, they did. Okay, they did this. They had these bits where you'd, like, find people's journals and stuff and things like that, and those would be, like, it would break you.
Yeah.
Reading this stuff, like, the struggle. They covered it in a very real way. In a lot of other zombie games, these are just something to be killed, but they do a good job of reminding you that these are people.
Yeah.
And, like, the actual, on top of the terror of what they are, it's also, and they're also people's loved ones. And this is, people really lost something through this. This wasn't just, because it doesn't detach the zombies from the people, which most other zombie games and movies do. It's just, they're just mindless things, but they don't really drive home the fact that these are people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, it definitely is an amazing game. Like, I put it on my list because of the ability that it has to make you feel. I mean, it is just, like you say, it also has the hope element on top of, I mean, the part in that game that sticks out to me the most, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, is just when they get to the zoo.
Oh, yeah.
And Ellie is just like, cool. And, like, just like, she gets to, like, because I'm pretty sure she grew up in the...
Yep.
Yeah, so she's like, there's like these animals I never saw before. She's like a kid at the zoo for the first time, and it's like, yeah,
Agreed.
Powerful moment, very powerful moment, because you're coming through this, like, ripped up building. You had to just fight through the basement, and it was sheer terror. And you get up to the top, and you're, like, walking through the door, and here's, like, you see a giraffe's neck go by, and you're like, what? And you step outside, and it's green and bright sunshine, and you're like, it's like you crossed over onto another planet. It's just amazing. Okay.
Oh man, I could gush about that game forever. So, on the complete opposite side of that spectrum, my next game is Doom 2016, which has no emotional moments. It's just pure combat nirvana the entire time. I love Doom 2016. It's easily the best shooter to play that I've ever played. and I mean it's so over the top in all the blood and guts and stuff like that, but mechanically they went for the idea that you're the Doomslayer and you want to rip and tear, and they wanted to never have you have to step back and, you know, hide and take a breath. And they made that happen through how they changed how you play by getting your health and ammo from the enemies by fighting them. And that just, you're on a rocket through that game the whole way. You know, it just carries you through, and every level is just a treat. And when you slowly go from the, you know, these space stations and UAC facilities into hell, and things just keep getting progressively more ridiculous. Like when you're in the, I think it's the Kandar Sanctum or something like that, and it's literally the entrance to the level is just a giant demon skull that you walk through its mouth. It's like like metal Aladdin, basically. Like that
the tiger mouth.
Yeah, when you call up the lion's mouth and the sand, it's basically like that. You just like go through, and yeah, I just, from a pure gameplay perspective, I don't know if there's ever gonna beat. I mean, Doom Eternal, I think, does the combat a little differently, but I don't know if it does it better. But I definitely, that game has changed the game for me in terms of like shooter gameplay. And as everybody that would talk to me and would know this show, is I love shooters. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Doom 2016. It's a freaking new classic for sure. And the soundtrack, by the way. I know I mentioned Hotline Miami 1 and 2 soundtrack, but the soundtrack is just amazing. So
We got into that because of the news last week.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. Even as someone who hasn't really played the newer Dooms, I'm familiar with the music because it is so good.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I can second that. My next game, I've talked about many times on the show. It's kind of becoming a thing,
as it should be.
Horizon Zero Dawn. It's probably the newest thing on my list, I think. It is the newest thing on my list.
Thing on your list, yeah.
But it's definitely earned its place there. It is one of the only games, not the only, but one of the only games I've ever platinumed where I felt the necessity to be like, I have to do everything.
See every last inch of the game.
And I have. I think I've basically, I beat it through once, and then then I beat it through again on ultra hard. Then the DLC came out, so I went back and went to the beginning and redid it all in ultra hard. Yeah. So, and then, but what makes that game, how I can attest to its good, like how amazing it is, I mean, my wife likes games, but she doesn't play many. Okay. So,
I think this is a point that you're going to make that we both share.
Well, maybe. What happened was I didn't know anything about the game. I didn't even know it existed. We came over here, and actually it was watching Eileen play. Mm-hmm. And immediately I knew it was like, I have to play this. Mm-hmm. Like within 5 seconds, I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, you see it on the screen, you're like, what is this?
And then, but my wife saw it and said, I have to play this. Now that's when you know something special.
Yeah.
You know, she was like, we have to get this game. And so we got Horizon Zero Dawn, and she's still playing through it. Admitted, like, she doesn't get much time to play games. So, I mean, to be fair, but like, she's still in love with it this much time later. You know, it's
when I hear her talk about it, you can tell that she like really loves it.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I don't know how much more endorsement you need. Like, this is easily in my top 10.
Yeah, I mean, my wife doesn't play many games either, but 2 of the games on your list, Last of Us and Horizon, they're 2 of her favorite things, just in general. She just loves them so much.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to find a game that kind of crosses boundaries like that into non-gamer territory, kind of.
Yeah.
Because I would say, I mean, I wouldn't consider them non-gamers, but they're very light gamers.
Light. Yeah, gamer light.
And I also think
there's
that
nothing
it's
wrong with it.
a super unique game. Like, you don't see very many games just, like, take on a setting like that and commit to it and do it well.
There is nothing cooler, in my opinion, than fighting a T-Rex strapped with machine guns as a chick with a bow. And, like, that's it.
Yeah. And when you describe it like that, it shouldn't work.
But it does.
Like, like, I think if I gave that game and that concept to 10 studios, I think 9 out of 10 of them take a dump on that idea. And it doesn't play nearly as good as it should.
Absolutely. Guerrilla nailed that one.
So good. So my next game should come as no surprise because I like shooters. But Half-Life 2. Because I've played it so many times throughout the years. And it's still good. It's just still, I'm blown away. I boot it up and I'm like, this game still looks good. It's still feels good to play. The physics engine is just so fun. The Combine are just great enemies. There's the atmosphere of all the levels, like when you walk into Ravenholm for the first time and the music sinks in and it gets like dark and you know that there's something just so not right. And then it switches from being like this sci-fi shooter to just like this horror game almost, like this sideshow kind of horror game. And the gravity gun's probably one of the best things in games ever. Just again, it's more of like the way that game feels to play. Like the shotgun is like one of my favorite shotguns in games. The Magnum is one of my favorite pistols in games. Like, it's just so iconic to me. Like, when I think about a shooter and how a good shooter should feel, Half-Life 2 is like the benchmark. And if it's less than that, then it's still good. But like, if you want to even be considered a great shooter to me, you have to clear that bar. And it's pretty hard to clear that bar. And it's just, for what it did in 2004, I think that it's very revolutionary. Cause
it's hard to remember when you see that game that it was that long ago.
Right, yeah. It seems like it was something that came out at the tail end of the decade or something, but it was like... And it was at that time when, like, Doom 3 came out, and it was all about, like, look at Doom's graphics and stuff. But if you, like, go back and play either of those games now, like, Half-Life 2 just holds up way better.
Like to the original Dooms?
No, to the, like, Doom 3.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'd agree with that. Yeah.
It was, like, from a technical standpoint, it was just far beyond, I think, a lot of stuff that was happening at the time. And, yeah, it's a classic for a reason. So, that's
yeah. I mean, look how awesome that looks.
There's really not that much that I could say about Half-Life 2 that hasn't been said by everybody across the internet. So I'll keep it kind of short, but
that was a game that again, this list isn't definitive. So I don't know if I would slot that into my top 10 somewhere or not. It's definitely something I'm going to have to revisit later.
Oh yeah.
Think about.
The nice thing is that they're dirt cheap.
Oh yeah, I own them on Steam.
Okay, good. I was going to say, if you don't own them yet, you can get them for like $1.50 on a Steam sale.
Yeah.
It's crazy. They just like give them away.
I think, I don't know if I've actually played the second one, but I've played the first.
Oh man, please play the second one.
Okay. So my next one is RE4, Resident Evil 4. So I think it's fairly safe to say that it's like probably the most brutal game that was on the GameCube.
Oh yeah, yeah. There
Yeah.
weren't that many. Weren't that many mature games on the GameCube.
No. But that I wasn't really a Resident Evil person too much before. The control scheme always bugged me. I never got into that like awkward camera angles, and then you had like it never translated in my brain how you were supposed to move when, like, if the camera's over here looking down at me from this corner of the room, how do I maneuver myself?
Yeah.
You know, it was very awkward in my opinion. I never really got over it. It's like the quality of the game is that they make it hard by making it inconvenient.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's a fair thing you could say. Yeah.
So, RE4, I've probably played it from beginning to end hundreds of times without exaggeration.
Whoa.
Yeah, I love that game.
Wow.
When you said Halo, if you had to pick one game to play forever, Halo CE would be that game for you. I think RE4 is that game for me.
Wow. Okay.
I'm trying to think of a singular special moment that I had with that game. And it's really difficult because my experience with it was over a long period of time. I had a rough patch where it was really tough for me to hold down a job, and I kind of bounced around from place to place, and kind of through that whole thing, that game was there for me to help keep me going through the darkness. I have something in my throat.
While Joe clears his throat, I'll drink some beer.
There you go. No, it definitely helped me keep going when times were pretty tough. At one point, I ended up in Vermont with some friends, and actually, I remember playing with her son. We played, and I kind of, we went back and forth playing, and I don't know, we kind of developed a bond over it, and I don't know, it's just, because it's hard to nail down a particular moment, but because there were so many, so it's near and dear to me. I mean, it seems silly because it's like there's nothing substantive there, like story-wise or anything like that. You feel like you have, you talk about Last of Us and Horizon and Hollow Knight and the ways they can make you feel about something, and you think like RE4 is like so shallow, but it's not about the game. It's about where I was when I played it,
I like that, Joe. That's a good way to put it. So this is the newest game on my list, that being Red Dead Redemption 2. I cried multiple times playing this game. I don't want to spoil it because it is new, but those moments where bad stuff happens to Arthur just really, man, it's tough. Like, I don't think that there's, I don't know what to say about that game. I really don't know what to say. It's like, I could say the word breathtaking and people throw that word around, but it's a legitimate breathtaking game. From the first time that you boot it up and you look at it and you see what they've done with the world and you see the detail that's in everything, and then it doesn't stop there. It's all the characters are so well-rounded and compelling and more than one-dimensional. Even the side missions, I cared about the people that I had to, help in the side missions, and one of them is Hunter. Well, he's an I think he's a Civil War vet, at this point in the game, and you go out and you just meet him somewhere, and you help him out because he's lost his leg, and he's got like a prosthetic, like a wooden prosthetic or whatever, and you form a bond with him, and you just go out and hunt with him, and then he ends up dying when you're out on one of the hunts, and as he's dying, he's like, hey, I'm going to give you, please take my horse, and you take his horse. And I rode that horse through the rest of the game. It was one of those things that was like, holy crap. Like, I didn't think a game can make me feel this way. And Arthur Morgan's the greatest single character that's ever existed in a game for me. And I'm so sad that the main writer for that game's gone from Rockstar because I just don't know if there will ever be a game that is so well written. And yeah, it's staggering as a piece of creative media.
I think the argument of whether or not games are art, I think it's pretty much fallen, out of common discussion because I don't think it's an argument anymore.
No. And Red Dead Redemption 2 is the definitive answer that yes, the games are art. I don't think that there's ever been any Western media ever that's hit me like that, let alone a game. I think it's the game that's gotten the most emotional response out of me ever. And it's, when you think of Rockstar, and I talk about like GTA Vice City, which is from the same studio, a decade earlier, a little over a decade earlier, and just to see where they went as a studio and like what they decided to do with that game, and the evolution of like their storytelling is just, it's black and white. Just put those two things next to each other and you're like, so yeah, Red Dead 2. If I had to put a game at one, I think that would be it.
I don't know how we can top that in this talk. That was wow, very heartfelt. I mean, you've convinced me. I wasn't sure if I was ever really going to play it. I mean, I'd heard you talk about it before, but you may have just sold a copy of the game.
Dude, like I know that you're like an emotionally sensitive kind of guy who, like, when presented with characters that you care about, like, you really connect with them. And as a game, I think that you'll love it. Yeah.
I'm very excited. I mean, I think that might be the first thing I do when I go home is boot up Steam.
Nice. On
my freshly built computer.
Yes. Oh, we'll get to that after this.
Yeah.
I don't want to sidetrack us,
but so my next entry on the list is Fear, and I'm going to have to look this up because I don't remember. I always feel like this game is older than it really is. Do you remember? Do you know offhand?
I think it came out in mid 2000s alongside probably like 2005, 2006 after Half-Life 2 and stuff.
Yeah, that's not going to pop it up.
It's just like stock photos of Fear. I love it. This is the game. There you go.
Oop. Okay, this might be a little harder to find than I thought.
Got it. 20,
How'd you do? Oh, okay.
I searched Fear game, 2005.
2005. Okay, so that was not long after Half-Life.
Yeah, it was the next year, yeah. The game still looks really good.
It really does. It looks good. The controls are funky, but I think that's because it was a PC game, and then it.
Yeah. It was a PC game first, for sure.
Yeah, and then it ended up on Xbox and or 360, I think.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it was Xbox 360. Anyway, it's fantastic. It's it's a horror game that
yeah, it was ported to the 360 and PlayStation 3, but it came out Yeah, it came out first on PC in 2005.
I remember, I got sidetracked in my mind, said something I didn't mean to say. Okay, Fear does a really good job of, so they don't hold your hand through, like, this, it's linear, but they don't, like, signpost too much, the original game, but they do a good job of putting the horror bits, the events, in front of your face, even though they don't like take you and go, you have to look over here. It's like you'll naturally be looking in the right places.
Yeah, they draw your eye to the place that they want you to without just grabbing you and making you look.
Yeah. And so I think it was really special there, and there are some really legitimate like moments. And there's like the bosses, or not bosses, there's the enemies that you're like, I don't want to see them. Like, you know, you're like, I'm legit afraid to walk through this room. I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And so that's fantastic. I love that in a game that actually makes me fear the enemies. Not just a boss, just regular old enemies.
Well, the AI was fantastic for the time.
Yes, it was. They did a really good job of like actually trying to flank you and take you down. And they did always move from cover to cover. They didn't just sit there and then poke their head up and let you get a shot off. No, they were like trying to avoid you.
Or when they move from cover to cover, they like go real slow to make sure that you have moments to hit them and stuff. Like,
yeah,
no, they just sprint. They're there.
Yep, they were always moving, and then they'll like tactically move and cover each other, and it was brilliant. It was so good. And then what makes this game really special is that it takes all of this, and then there's mechs.
yeah. I forgot about the mechs, dude.
Yeah. So at one point, I think I'm not sure, but I think it's the first one you see. You crawl. You're in an office building. You crawl out onto the. I mean, it's how old? I'm not good. I'm not worried. You crawl out onto a balcony, like overlooking a courtyard, or it's the roof overlooking a courtyard in the center of this office building. You drop down, and you don't know it's there until you drop down into the courtyard, and then all of a sudden, this mech starts running at you, and it's fast, and it's shooting rockets at you and machine gunning you, and you have basically nothing. It's so good. So then like every time you run into one of those mech suits and you have to take it down, you feel pretty powerless. You know, you're terrified.
Yeah.
So while it's like ridiculous that you have this horror game and then you have mech suits running around, like it fits, you know.
Yeah, they didn't make it seem like over the top.
No, it's like, because I guess the whole story is that there's like the government's like trying to create telepathically controlled soldiers.
Yeah.
So that you can actually have whoever's in command of the unit can actually move everyone around most effectively. So they like try to like super augment you don't get, like, the first game, you don't get the story delivered to you. You actually find out the story beats through listening to answering machine messages and things like that. Or you'll find computers and, like, you'll load the data and the person will, like, read it to you over your earpiece or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And, like, that's how you find everything out. So it's not like you actually have to pay attention to the audio logs and things like that, and you end up finding out these bits that it's like a telepathically controlled army that you're up against, and that's why the mech suits fit, because the mech suits are telepathically controlled and like all this stuff, and you end up fighting against these, like, I think the most terrifying enemy in the whole game, actually, every time you see them, is there's these ninjas that turn invisible.
Oh yeah. Oh dude. Any enemy that's like that in a shooter game is always like the worst.
And they mess you up. And they don't make them easy. Like they're fast. They do a lot of damage in one hit. And it's like they'll like zip right up in front of you, and right as and just wham, right as like because okay, they're invisible, then they'll go whoop right in front of you and punch you, and they only visible for like that half a second.
Yeah.
And then they're gone again. You're like, where do you go? And then it's like exactly like it would be in real life. Like they're not going to just broadcast it. It's like, no, I'm going to only be visible for the half second before I punch you right in the face. And you're afraid, like, because like there's one particular hallway where you're walking along, and then all of a sudden you see all the ceiling tiles going. You're like, what? And then like you watch them drop down out of the ceiling and then dive through like a glass window. And so they're tracking you, and like, I mean, the whole game's just. You're like, I don't want to go. I don't. Can I go back home? Can I curl up in bed with my mommy? Can someone make me feel better? I'm scared, mommy. Okay.
So my next game is a game that has been in my top games list ever since I played it. And it's Metal Gear Solid 2.
How are you? Oh, because you skipped. Right. I got you.
Yeah, I skipped past the ones that we already covered. Yep. So Metal Gear Solid 2 is the sequel, obviously, to one of my other favorite games of all time, Metal Gear Solid 1. And it's just so unique. It's like for the time back in 2001, like it was just beyond anything that was out at the time. In 2001, like the cinematography in all the cutscenes, the dialogue is all, I mean, it's cheesy now-ish because, I'm not freaking 10.
Yeah.
But the graphics back in the day were just, it was like the showcase for the PlayStation 2. And the characters are all just so ridiculous and good. And I just, it took me through all these twists and turns with the story, and it did this, it does so many things where it plays with, your sense of like knowing what's going on a lot. And it asks like all these philosophical questions that I really appreciate, like the nature of like, it was very predictive, I would say, of, it talked about memes and how destructive and influential they could be to a society back in 2001, and
yeah.
And it was so ahead of its time in how it talked about like the nature of existence and how media can influence what truth is. And I don't know, it was the first time that I played a game that actually got me really to think about like how it could correlate to my life and how we live. And I went to my dad, I think, with like some of the things that this game taught me and some of like the concepts that it brought up. And he was like, yeah, they talked about those in books and stuff already too. You could go read those. And I was like, man, thanks.
Yeah. I've had similar experience with games.
I was just like, shouldn't you be happy that I'm interested in these things at all? Like,
yeah.
Like, does it matter how I got how these things like spurred interest in me? Does it matter that it was from a video game? It was just, I don't know. It's Hideo Kojima is, a celebrated auteur in the game sphere for a reason. And I think that, if I had to point back to like, there have been many, many, many essays written about this game specifically, and like what they talk about or like what the game talks about. And, I would encourage people to check them out. There's a bunch of stuff on YouTube that I've watched over the years. I think that these things that like talk about the game and like what it did and what it was trying to do, just further cement how much I really love this game, because it's hard to understand like the layers that it goes to, until you like actually like sit back and really think about it. So, yeah, and I think that it's on a decent amount of platforms, like
Yeah.
that you can actually play it.
What's the full title of that one?
Sons of Liberty.
Okay. Maybe it's a different one where it's like the title's like 5 million miles long.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I remember there was one of them where my brother and I, we both kind of picked on it because the name was like this long.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of which one it would be. I don't know. Because they used to call, like, the first game was like Metal Gear Solid, and then underneath it said like Tactical Espionage Action or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think that was just like a tagline, but
Yeah.
it would be pretty funny if that was the whole damn name of the game. Say the whole thing, damn it.
Okay. My next game is The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. I think everybody who would make a list with Zelda on it, I think a lot of people who would make a list with Zelda on it would put Ocarina of Time. And then I think we're kind of going through, in the Zelda universe, we're going through a time where everyone's kind of doing everyone likes Ocarina of Time, so I don't like Ocarina of Time thing.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. But I like Ocarina of Time. I've always felt that as soon as I played Wind Waker, and like that was the game where everyone was so upset that Nintendo didn't go with an ultra real looking game. They wanted Breath of the Wild basically at that time, or the Twilight Princess at that time.
Yeah, I think it was wasn't Wind Waker like the first game that they
did Cartoon Link, the cartoony.
I mean, like they had Ocarina of Time, and then Wind Waker was the first one after that, right?
Yep.
On a major Nintendo console, and it was like, well, you got this new hardware, and you could do better graphics, so you should make it look really real. And then they were like, no, we're gonna make it look cool.
Well, the thing is, they had put out a picture. I don't remember if it was a picture or a really short video, but it was Ganon and Link, and it looked hyper real.
Uh-huh.
And so everyone was expecting that.
Yeah.
So they kind of did shoot themselves in the foot with that one.
Mm-hmm.
So they should have expected some backlash, because then when they finally did start releasing images of Link, and he looked all cel shaded, but it doesn't matter. That game is gorgeous.
Yeah.
It is so fantastically gorgeous. I loved the sailing. I loved the exploration. The combat is awesome. The combat in that game is really involved. I mean, when you fight against, like, my favorite thing to fight against are the Dark Nuts, and you actually cut their armor off. You can do like a front flip over their head and knock their helmet off, and then when you land behind them, you cut the straps that hold their breastplate on, like cut it off, and then and if you can knock their sword out of their hand, they'll start fighting you like karate style. I mean, it's so cool. This game is so cool. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's a Zelda, and I think the story's brilliant. Every bit of it is just, I think, Zelda at its peak.
I think that's emblematic of like how special Nintendo is, like what you just described with that enemy and stuff. Is they think about all that little stuff.
Yeah,
because like and for other developers it wouldn't matter, you know. It would be like, so what? Who cares? But like, it's just so cool.
Yeah,
like you said, like I don't know what else you can say. It's just so cool that they think of that stuff.
And they're not the only ones that are like that. There's like these there's these moths that you actually hook shot their wings off, and when you get all their wings off, they fall on the ground, and then they start running at you like on the ground fight. Yeah. I mean, it's just so cool. I mean, you have to think about, like, I mean, every enemy has like these things like that. Like there's these enemies.
Reminds me of Monty Python.
The jellies. There's one of the jellies where it's actually, you can't kill it with like, so you'll hit it with a hammer and it'll just squish and then come back together.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and like so you hit it with the sword and it'll like slice apart and then come back together and just keep. And the only way you can beat it is by making it hitting it with light and then smashing it with the hammer when it turns to rock.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, those are really fun too. I mean, the whole game's like that. It's got these just really cool elements. They think of every detail. I mean, it's a Nintendo game, so yeah, definitely one of my favorite Zeldas. Breath of the Wild is an honorable mention in that part because, I mean, I always put the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess together in like terms of when I'm talking about favorite Zeldas.
So this was a hard one for you, I think.
Very. One of them had to make the list, and I put Wind Waker there. Breath of the Wild is an honorable mention, though, because of when I play that game, I'm always in the background, like making my own stories up in the background of why I'm running through the woods and finding, coming across these enemies, and it's really fun. And I actually, for the longest, wanted to make a stream where I just make up my own story as I'm playing through.
You should.
Oh,
I still want. Idea.
I still want to. I just need to buy a capture card because.
Right.
Anyway.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Maybe that can be a thing on the channel. Joe's like fanfic playthrough of Zelda or something. I think it'd be pretty cool.
I'd have to put a lot of actual effort in it.
You might, yeah.
All right.
So for my final game, I have BioShock and BioShock Infinite as.
Okay.
As the like I did with Hotline Miami.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of cheating here.
I know. But I think BioShock creates an atmosphere and a setting as good as any game does. Both in Rapture and Columbia. And the first BioShock was more like horror.
Yeah, very much so.
And they trap you in, this confined space, and they throw all these ridiculous, creative characters and personalities at you as far as like enemies and not just like cannon fodder enemies, but also like bosses and the big bosses of Rapture itself. And it kind of presents you with a lot like Metal Gear, where they present you with like these philosophical ideas about, is a man not entitled to, the sweat of his brow and stuff like that. And he presents you with like Andrew Ryan as like this objectivist, like, cult leader basically. And like his thoughts are kind of grounded in this kind of reasonable thing, but you see that it's gotten overwrought and completely turned to the worst possible place that it could go. And they do a very similar thing in Colombia, but it's like grounded in like American exceptionalism and racism and all this kind of stuff, like ridiculous nationalism to an extent. And I think that like the gunplay in both games isn't that great. Like, I mean, I love the gunplay in Infinite, but everybody always knocks it for that. But I think that what they did with Infinite is completely different than what they did with the first BioShock, where I did care about like the enemies and Andrew Ryan as the main villain and stuff like that, but what they did with giving you Elizabeth in BioShock Infinite and making you care about her and building a relationship between her and Booker throughout the game, and the whole mind F at the end of BioShock Infinite. I mean, it's a pretty old game. Yeah, it's a pretty old game. But I still don't want to spoil it.
No, oh yeah.
But what happens? But like at the time, I was like jaw on the floor, like whoa.
The original BioShock?
No, in Infinite.
Infinite. Okay.
I mean, I played the original BioShock after I played Infinite, so I don't know if I would have flipped them and played them in order. If I would have less of an opinion of Infinite over the original BioShock, or vice versa. but I think they're both just incredible games, and they're both incredible settings, and they both have incredible bad guys with really awesome and unique motivations. And yeah,
I really enjoyed. I didn't play Infinite. Actually, the only BioShock I played was the first one. But that game is a lot of fun. I definitely agree with it being in. It's not in my top 10, but I definitely say it's a fantastic game for sure.
Yeah, when we set up Steam Share, I have it on Steam. You should definitely try to play it.
I do too. I have all of them on Steam.
Oh, cool.
I've only played the first one.
Okay. Well, I mean, I would. You said you want to check out Red Dead, and I will definitely say, yeah, for 100%, you got to play Red Dead first.
Yes.
But
Yes. So the final out of our list of 20 games, which is actually 18.
And this one is like probably, I don't know, two of mine, Hollow Knight and Hotline Miami, are both, not often mentioned, if at all, in top games list. But I feel like this is along that line where like it's definitely a personal Joe pick.
Yeah, I do question even myself if it should be in my list, but it does hold a place in my heart for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It is the racing game that got me into wanting to play racing games. I know that's probably not for a lot of people, but Need for Speed Most Wanted, the good one, the old one, the one that doesn't suck terribly on the the PS4.
Yeah, I think that this,
or was it the 3?
I think it was the PS4.
Yeah, it sucks awfully. It's just it's a heap of garbage that has nothing to do with the first game by the same name. I don't know.
Oh no, they remade it in 2012, so it was a PS3 and 360 game.
Okay. I actually had it on the Wii U.
Yeah, it's a Wii U game too.
Yeah, but I did also play it on the PS3. I just had it on the Wii U first.
It was on PS3, Windows, Vita, 360, Wii U, and they released an iPhone version of it.
Oh, wow. That tells you enough right there. Anyway, the original Need for Speed Most Wanted, they tried to have a story. I wouldn't say that it's like the most successful, but the way they move you through different things, like unlocking different areas. I mean, the racing is fun. You fight the police. Are you watching the original game trailer?
No, I'm watching the remake trailer to see about it.
Oh. I don't know. I was playing that game. I actually bonded with my cousin Mike over that game, and me and my next door neighbor actually at my mom's house, we used to actually take the big old box TV. I would carry it from our house, set it up in his garage like on a milk crate, and bring my GameCube over and plug it all in and move it around so we could sit there and experience like cop chases together and stuff.
Right.
And like like the big old box,
Yeah.
Big old box TV. Oh man, I don't know. It just holds a special place in my heart because of.
Oh yeah. Oh, so the original was from 05.
That was also 05?
Yeah.
Oh, good grief. I'm picking a lot of old games.
Oh, I mean, a lot of old games are fantastic.
It's just, I loved the way
I remember the chicken, the screenshot too. Wow.
You get
So
slow down.
This was a 360 game.
You get to slow down time at some point. Wow, it's so bad. It didn't age well, did it?
The cutscene's real bad. But I mean, it looks like super fun to play.
You have destructible environments that you can run through to try to like get the cops off your tail. Just the maps, the tracks are really fun. I don't know.
I think this game was made by the people that made Burnout. No, they weren't. Damn. That's really cool though.
I know I'm probably alone in this, but this is like, there aren't many other Need for Speeds that actually appeal to me. I mean, I did the one where you race across America. Which one's that?
Shoot.
It's the first time that anyone ever got out of a car in a Need for Speed game. I can't remember what that thing's called.
There's just one that's just Need for Speed. Then there's Need for Speed Payback, Need for Speed Heat, Need for Speed Rivals. Dude, if you like Need for Speed Most Wanted, I think that you should play Need for Speed Underground.
Yeah, I keep hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah, those are like
Right.
the PS2 360 or original Xbox games. But
Yeah.
I just remember one of my buddies just playing the hell out of that game.
Now didn't they redo Underground?
I don't think. I think they just released an Underground 2.
Okay. Well, so while we were doing this, right at the end there, while you were talking about BioShock, I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna throw in a number 11.
You're allowed because my last one wasn't an and. It was like a one and this one, so you can add another one.
I cannot believe that I did not put Dead Space in my top 10 list.
Dead Space is so good.
That is such a phenomenal game. Even just the you have a gun that can turn, it cuts sideways or it cuts straight up and down, horizontally or vertically.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is that the alien virus thing, you have like the best, like you shoot its legs off with this like gun that cuts, the cutter. That's what it's called, isn't it?
Yeah,
The
I think
cutter?
it's just called the plasma cutter.
The plasma cutter, yeah. And then like the health bar being on your back, on your spine, and like you watch the tank drop down as you get hit, and you have
They did a really good job of building the atmosphere without having like a huge UI.
yeah, there's really hardly any HUD.
Yeah.
It was very impressive for that time. Like HUDs were getting ridiculous at that time.
Yeah.
So they did a really good job of cutting back on that, and then it's legitimately terrifying the whole way through.
Yeah, it is.
That game is probably one of the scariest games I've ever played. It is. And then and the boss fights are awesome. I think the only gripe that I have with the game is that one part where you have to control the cannons on the ship and shoot comets that are coming at you, and it is impossible. It took me so many tries to finally get past that part.
I'm strange in that I like 2 more than 1.
That's another one where like I very often play the first game in a series and don't move on from there because like
I don't think they did it perfect in the first one.
A lot of times maybe I'm afraid to have my
I mean, a bad second game can spoil a franchise.
right.
Or really any bad sequel.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of times maybe I miss out on really good second games, but I really never trust it.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm
Yeah, it's like a lightning in the lightning in a bottle. You know,
Yeah.
that kind of situation where you're like, this has to be the perfect version of this.
Yeah. And maybe that's not true, but I don't know. I cling to it because it was fantastic. I'll give it a shot. If you say you think it's better, I'll give it a shot. But I figured the series in general deserves an honorable mention.
So I think it's better from a gameplay perspective. It controls better is why I like 2 better. But I think that 1 does the horror better.
Yeah. Okay. Because you do walk like a tank.
Yeah, you move so slow in the first one. But I would say that the first game is less ridiculous than the second game. Like the second game, you know, you have like these, your mind is all messed up and you have all these visions and stuff. So there's like a bunch of ridiculous stuff. Whereas like, even though Dead Space as a concept is kind of like, you know, out there, you're fighting aliens on a ship or whatever, but like it still feels grounded.
Yeah, for the most part.
Just like because you're like just a dude in a suit with your tool.
Except you do have mind powers in the first one.
Yeah, but you have beyond the mind powers thing, I just mean like the narrative beats that they take with your psychosis and stuff.
Right.
That they give you in the second game is like it's a bit over the top versus the first game where you're just a dude fighting through a ship full of aliens. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't get too bizarre.
That's probably like, see, I'm in Dead Space 1 for the horror, so I feel like I probably still would like it better than the second one.
Mm-hmm. I went back and played Dead Space 1 not too long ago, because I really liked 2 and I couldn't find 2 anywhere that I didn't want to buy it on Origin, so I found it on Steam and I bought it for like super cheap. And I'm glad that I did because it's a little dated now. It like looks a little dated and controls kind of sluggishly, but like it's still like I really appreciated what it did. Like the ship that you're on and everything, just like they did a really good job setting the tone and the atmosphere for that game.
That is one game I legitimately refused to play when I was on my own. Like if there was no one else around, I was like, no.
Yeah.
Nope.
You get in your head about it,
Yeah.
Because so much of it is like they had a really good sound design too. So,
oh man.
They just like mess with your head where sounds would come from and stuff. Yeah, that's the thing I love the most about horror games.
All right. I think that wraps for today.
Yes. We made it through our top 10 individual games in no particular order. That's the full title of our list.
Top 10 games in no particular order.
So yeah, obviously we'd love to hear from you on your top 10 games lists. Lists are easy content, but like it's also, I feel like if we're a gaming channel and we're talking about games, like I feel like it's important for you to understand like what our tastes are.
Definitely.
What we hold in high regard. And maybe, if we talk about a new game that we're playing and we poo-poo on it and you're like, well, they don't like these kind of games. Like it's good that you can have an idea of what we look for in a game, so that when we talk about games in like good or bad lights, you kind of know what we would have liked from them, like our proclivity in terms of what we enjoy from games.
That's a fair point. Yeah, because you read a lot of or hear a lot of people's opinions on games, and then sometimes you weight someone's opinion too heavily who doesn't have your same kind of taste. So I think this is really cool for establishing who we are.
Yeah, and if we say it every episode, but if anything, it just describes how we are similar in some regards and how completely different we are in other regards.
I didn't expect our lists to be this different.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And I mean, like a lot of the games that we both have on our lists, we both appreciate,
Yeah.
but they're not like up there for us. So, all right, guys, thanks so much for joining us. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next week. And don't forget, you can check us out on Twitch on Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And we'll try to get this Halo 2 stream going again. And yeah, love you guys.
Peace. Be easy.